Chapter 2107. Oh, what do you mean? Li Xiong-tu looked at him in confusion. In this Heaven Imperial Court, both you and I are outsiders. This is not the Heaven Imperial Court. Our cultivation is more than enough to dominate the Chongtian continent, but in this place, we are basically nothing. Chu Yang said softly, so here, I am no longer the Calamity Sword Master. I am not even a top expert. There are too many experts in this world. We must know our place. Otherwise, we will suffer a great loss. Chu Yang said softly but seriously. Li Xiong-tu was silent for a while and said, Thank you for your advice. Li Xiong-tu's words were sincere and sincere. Because he himself knew that his words just now had exposed his somewhat arrogant mentality. That sentence, who is it that can make you so embarrassed? At first, it didn't sound like a big deal. But in fact, it already regarded Chu Yang as a top expert. If Chu Yang was already a top expert, what position did Li Xiong-tu place himself in? This top expert's strength might even be measured by Chu Yang's level in the Heaven Imperial Court. If Li Xiong-tu kept this attitude, as Chu Yang said, he would definitely suffer a great loss. Even suffering a great loss was an understatement. There was a risk of death at every turn. You'd better not get involved in the enemy I'm facing this time. You don't even need to know. Chu Yang smiled, when I'm a little better, I'll leave immediately. Brother Li, I'm already very grateful for your help this time. Li Xiong-tu's face darkened. Chu Yang, are you looking down on me? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said seriously, Brother Li, we've known each other for a long time. When have I ever looked down on you? But this time, the enemy is really too strong. And the enemy's forces are really too big. If you get involved rashly, I will have more scruples. Chu Yang's words were very straightforward. He even told Li Xiong-tu directly that if he got involved, not only would he not be of help to him, but he would also be a burden. If he didn't cause trouble, he would be helping. They had never been close friends, but Chu Yang understood Li Xiong-tu's temperament very well. If he didn't get rid of Li Xiong-tu's idea, Li Xiong-tu would definitely not give up and would definitely get involved. That would truly be harming him. However, Li Xiong-tu was so worried that he frowned. He said in a low voice, Chu Yang, did you provoke some of the top-ranked super sects in the Heaven Imperial Court this time? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. If it was only a super sect, I would have been more relaxed. At least, I would have had the strength to deal with them. But, the enemy I provoked this time is 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than a super sect. Even this comparison is the most conservative estimate. Li Xiong-tu sucked in a breath of cold air. Meng Huanhuan covered her mouth, her face full of shock. After a long while, Li Xiong-tu said cautiously, could it be that you are, what I provoked this time is the entire Ink Cloud Heaven, and even the master of Ink Cloud Heaven, Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud himself? Chu Yang said straightforwardly. Li Xiong-tu rubbed his eyebrows with 2 fingers and smiled bitterly. I say, Chu Yang, no matter how audacious you are, aren't you playing too big this time? What did you do to make the entire Ink Cloud Heaven hunt you down? Chu Yang grinned. Actually, I didn't do anything. I just killed the son of Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud, that's all. Li Xiong-tu staggered and almost fell to the ground. He stabilized his body with great difficulty, but he was already speechless. I have to admit, this enemy, old Li, really can't handle it now. If I don't do this, I can't. Li Xiong-tu looked conflicted. Chu Yang almost laughed out loud. Isn't that so? I admit that I can't handle it either. Damn it, after listening to Chu Yang's explanation of the cause and effect, Li Xiong-tu punched his own thigh and said angrily, Good kill. A bastard like this deserves to be killed. Motherfucker, that Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud, Yuan Tianjie, really doesn't know any better. Brother Chu's actions were clearly to help him clean up his family. He should be grateful to you, but he actually sent troops to kill him. This is simply repaying kindness with enmity. It's unreasonable. Chu Yang was flabbergasted. He stared at Li Xiong-tu in a flabbergasted manner. He had been stunned by the words of this guy. What kind of person is this? I seem to have said it very clearly just now. It's me who killed his son. How can he be grateful to me, and even if I know that you're speaking on my side, it doesn't make sense. The hatred of killing is irreconcilable. If he really wants to thank me for helping him clean up his family, would I dare to believe it? Of course not. Even if he doesn't find trouble with me, I'll have to be on tenterhooks for the rest of my life. That feeling is probably even more terrifying than him directly finding trouble with me. Being on tenterhooks for the rest of my life, just thinking about it is scary. Oh, am I crazy, or is Li Xiong too crazy? How did he come up with such words? As he spoke, Chu Yang acutely felt an endless numbness all over his body. This was a good sign. The appearance of this feeling meant that his wounds were about to heal. After waking up, Chu Yang didn't take any heavy pills to recover his body. Every time he survived the heavenly punishment, as long as he was still alive, he would be blessed by the heavens. At such a time, the energy of the heavens and earth would be infused into his body, and he would be reborn. If he rashly used heavy pills, it would be a waste. Any waste now would be shameful, and the consequences would be severe. Just as Li Xiong too was dumbfounded, he saw the many terrifying wounds on Chu Yang's chest healing bit by bit. Then, the wounds formed scabs, and the scabs fell off. Chu Yang's skin recovered as if he was never injured, and was as smooth as jade. At the same time, the whistling spiritual energy in Chu Yang's body was also stimulated. It gradually pushed forward, and then reconnected all the broken meridians. It surged through his meridians like a tsunami. Chu Yang could feel that his injuries were gradually recovering with each cycle. Moreover, his cultivation had also advanced by a step. With a thought, he opened up his inner vision. To his surprise, he found that his meridians were now as wide as the Yangtze River. The flow of the vital energy in his meridians was no longer in the form of mist like before. Instead, it had added a lot of pale golden colors. It came and went with a whistling sound, like the endless waves on the sea, going back and forth in an endless cycle. Also, his dantian had obviously expanded as well. Another change was the primordial real silk in his dantian. There was now a big bundle in each of his dantians. Originally, Chu Yang could still count clearly. There was one more. Yes, there were 3 more, but now, he couldn't even count them. It was really a pleasant surprise. Even though the tribulation space was still quiet, the rich and pure spiritual energy was still flowing into his dantian. However, his dantian was now empty. Even though there was a huge amount of spiritual energy flowing into his dantian, it did not seem to be able to change anything. He no longer felt the sense of crisis of being filled to the brim and was about to burst. Heavenly man level. Although it was only a beginner level, but he had still entered the heavenly man level. He could be considered to have officially stepped into the level of first-class expert. Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally crossed the threshold of the heavenly man level. On the path of cultivation, he had taken another big step forward. Chu Yang, what level have you reached in your current cultivation? Is it earth level? Or even higher? You should be reaching heaven level soon, right? Li Xiongtu asked Chu Yang as he roasted meat. Chu Yang had already changed out of his black clothes. He sat beside Li Xiongtu and watched him roast meat. Meng Huanhuan had gone to pick wild vegetables. It's okay. Slightly higher than heaven level, say, Chu Yang replied. Higher than heaven level? Don't tell me you already have saint level cultivation. How is that possible? You've only been here for a few days. Li Xiongtu really couldn't believe Chu Yang's word. No, I'm not a saint level anymore. Oh, I know. Are you at heaven level now? Or higher level? Haha, my current cultivation is just 1 word higher than heaven level. What is your cultivation level? Can you tell me directly? Well, okay. I should have just reached heavenly man level, just 1 word higher than heaven level. Chu Yang said casually, hurry up and roast it. I'm starving, Pa. Half a rabbit fell from Li Xiongtu's hand and fell into the fire with a bang. Such good rabbit meat. How can I waste it like this? Chu Yang hurriedly scooped it out and said with heartache. But he didn't hear Li Xiongtu's response. Chu Yang turned around and saw Li Xiongtu staring at him as if he had seen a ghost. Heavenly man level? Cough cough. Chu Yang realized that he had unintentionally acted a little pretentious. It was the kind that deserved a beating. You. Are you still human? Li Xiong was so aggrieved that he wanted to die. I've been cultivating so hard, and even had such great opportunities, but I'm still only at the heaven stage. But you've already surpassed the heaven stage, saint stage, and reached the heaven stage? Is there such a thing as slightly higher and one word lower? Cough cough. I'm actually fine. It's just that my opportunities are a little better. Chu Yang was speechless and didn't dare to say anything more. If he had known that Li Xiongtu would be beaten black and blue by him, he would have hidden a little more. Li Xiongtu was shocked for a while. Then, he came back to his senses. He laughed and said, "That's great. I have a new goal." He laughed heartily. "I've been chasing all of you, chasing Mo Tianji, Jiyu Duxing, Dong Wushong. But I never caught up. It's good that I didn't catch up. If I did, I'm afraid I'll slack off. I'll let all of you run in front. It's also a kind of fun for me to keep chasing." His voice was full of heroism. There was no hint of disappointment at all. Chapter 2108. Reorganize the team and be on guard. When the hook-nosed old man said those words, he realized that his voice was actually trembling. Rather than saying that he was warning others, it was more like he was warning himself that the terrifying enemy could appear again at any time. If he didn't want to die, he had to be careful at all times. Following this shout, the large group of people came back to their senses. After calming down from the shock, everyone's faces were filled with fear. They gathered together and whispered to each other with pale faces. Looking at the messy corpses on the ground, they were all old friends who were talking and laughing with them just a moment ago. For a moment, everyone felt a sense of sadness. But now, strangely, the sadness was not strong. Instead, it was fear, and worry for their future that took over their hearts. Or it could also be said that when these people crossed oceans and mountains to come here to kill their old elders and old brothers, that kind of friendship that they once cherished had long disappeared from their hearts, right? Once there was no love, no one's life was more important than their own in their eyes. When the team set off again, the atmosphere was much gloomier than before. Looking at the gate of Lone Bamboo City not far away, it was like looking at a demon with its mouth wide open, waiting for a chance to devour. Once they entered the city, they would have to face the assassination of their enemies at any time. Facing such a gloomy atmosphere, the leader of the team, the hook-nosed elder, could not do anything. He even had such thoughts. But as the leader of the team, he had to do it. He said loudly, "Everyone, let's hurry up. As long as we meet up with the other two sects, everything will be fine." Everyone was shocked. As long as they met up, their manpower would multiply, and their chances of survival would increase as well. They immediately quickened their pace. But at this moment, another change occurred. From the back of the team, a black shadow with a magnificent sword light rushed over. This time, there was no greeting at all. If the last time was a surprise attack, this time was a real sneak attack. The terrifying executioner who had just chiseled through the entire team and left successfully did not really leave. In fact, after he succeeded in his first attack, he didn't even pause for long before he launched a second round of attack. Chiseling through, it was still chiseling through. The sneak attack this time was even more abrupt than the first time. This was completely out of everyone's expectations. Only when this sword light of death was only 1 or 2 feet away from the crowd did someone notice it. Enemy attack. Ah! The person who screamed was at the front of the group, but he only had time to shout out before he was instantly crushed by the dazzling sword light. A black shadow, with a sharp sword light, pierced into the crowd from the back of the group with an unstoppable force. Blood rained down from the sky without stopping. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached the front of the group. The piercing motion from behind was completed once again. "How dare you? You've gone too far." The hook-nosed old man was infuriated by this second sneak attack. He disregarded everything and used his sword to block the attack head-on. At this moment, he was actually stimulated to the point of risking his life. Dang dang dang! A savage laughter rang out. The The hook-nosed old man was shocked and quickly retreated. There was already a cut on his chest from the sword chi. His clothes were torn apart. If he had not retreated in such a hurry, this sword would have sliced open his stomach. As for the sword in his hand, only the hilt was left. The black-robed man snorted and said coldly, "Good sword. Good reaction. Good cultivation." After being obstructed by the hook-nosed old man, the unstoppable momentum of the black-robed man finally slowed down a little. In the instant that his body seemed to fall, he swung his sword in a circle and cut the two saint-level experts beside him into 8 pieces. Then, a magnificent sword light flickered again, and like a hurricane, he disappeared from the city gate. He only left behind a cold sentence, "Everyone, let's meet in the city." Before he finished his sentence, he had already disappeared without a trace. The hook-nosed old man looked at the sword hilt in his hand dumbfoundedly. Looking at the 3 pieces of the sword on the ground, his hands and feet turned cold. This was the divine weapon that had accompanied him for his entire life. It was known as one of the 10 great swords of Mo Yun Tian and ranked 4th among the 10 great swords of Mo Yun Tian, but facing the opponent's sword, it had only clashed 3 times and it had already been cut into 4 pieces. Even with such a sword, the opponent actually praised it. Good sword. Good sword. Then what kind of sword was the opponent's sword? Heavenly sword? Divine sword? Or some other sword? Great Elder. Among the group, there was a wave of wailing. Another 150 or so people lost their lives under this sword strike. The Great Elder's body trembled. He only felt as if a cold poisonous snake was crawling on his back. For a moment, his hair stood on end. This time, looking at the corpses and broken limbs all over the ground, he could not even feel angry. At this rate, it would not take much. At most, 3 to 5 more times and these people would all be finished. The Great Elder's right hand loosened and the hilt of the broken sword fell to the ground. Suddenly, he felt a burst of weakness all over his body. Chu Yang, bathed in blood, disappeared from Lone Bamboo City. After a few turns, even the divine senses that had been following him could not keep up with his speed. He actually got rid of them easily. With a creak, the door of a house suddenly opened. A waxen-faced, hunchbacked young man walked out. It could be seen that this young man was seriously ill. After taking 2 steps, he would start coughing violently. Opposite was a pharmacy. The young man walked in, trembling. He put on 3 bags and took out a few Shui Yun coins to buy a bag of medicine. Then, he walked out gratefully. The shop assistant in the pharmacy could not help but sigh sympathetically. This young man was seriously ill with tuberculosis. These days, he had been barely holding on. But now, he had reached the point where he could no longer hold on. It looked like he was about to die. These few days, he had come to get medicine every day to suppress his illness. The shop assistant had told him that there was no hope, but he still persisted and refused to give up. Perhaps, he really could not hold on tomorrow. But there were many pitiful people like him in the world. This was only a pharmacy, not a charity hall. Most importantly, he was not the boss. Even if he had the heart, he would not be able to do it. The young man walked back to the shabby house. He carefully closed the door and began to boil the medicine. Not long after, the smell of medicine wafted. Then, he staggered into the room with the medicine. The sound of drinking medicine could be heard, mixed with constant coughing. A few telepathic thoughts circled around the room and the pharmacy. They seemed to be listening to the discussion of the shop assistants. Then, they disappeared. The telepathic thoughts in the air were communicating, "It shouldn't be here. Isn't it here? That's strange. Why would it suddenly disappear after reaching here? This matter is very strange. Let's search other places. Anyway, this person must be in Lone Bamboo City. That person had clearly shown himself before. How could he disappear in the blink of an eye? He is clearly not a saint. How could he easily get rid of our divine senses? Let's search again. I'll go south and you go north. Then I'll go east and you go west. Okay." In the shabby house, the young man with tuberculosis was still coughing. Then, he put down the bowl. His eyes faintly flashed a cold light. This young man was one of Chu Yang's many identities in Lone Bamboo City. As soon as he entered, Chu Yang began to manage these identities. Now, he had achieved initial results. At least, when he disguised himself as such, he was absolutely safe. That hook-nosed man is really impressive. He injured my internal organs with one sword attack. His strength is indeed far above mine. Chu Yang thought, if it wasn't for the fact that the Calamity Sword is unparalleled in the world, I'm afraid I would have really failed miserably this time. Feeling the unbearable pain in his chest, Chu Yang took a deep breath and silently used the heaven-splitting divine technique to relieve the injury. Normally, whether it was the chi of medicine or the spring of life, they could easily heal this kind of injury. If he was more extravagant, he could just take a heavy pill and everything would be fine. But now, time was not on his side. He had temporarily lost his greatest trump card, and could only use the most basic healing methods. Fortunately, the Laird Heaven Divine Art was extraordinarily effective, and with the support of endless dense spiritual energy, this serious injury would be healed in a few hours at most. In this lone bamboo city, why did two saint-level experts suddenly appear? Chu Yang frowned. Which side do these two belong to? If they belong to Demon Emperor Sky, then it's better. If they belong to the Black Cloud Sky Army, or the hidden experts of the three big sects, then it's really bad. In the future, I must be more careful. I can't afford to be injured now. However, what harm is there in using the sword aura to massacre the entire world? It is truly too sharp. I feel that the power of this sword has not been fully unleashed. If its full power can be unleashed, how powerful will it be? I'm really looking forward to it. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as he thought carefully. What he didn't know was that the entire lone bamboo city was currently in a state of unprecedented shock. In the morning, after the people of the three big sects received the news, they all rushed over. They had already gathered nearby, so it was not difficult for them to rush over. However, when they truly saw the corpses and remains that were neatly arranged on the ground, all of the spectators couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Many of them had tears welling up in their eyes. Among these corpses, how many were acquaintances? Relatives? Brothers? They traveled tens of thousands of miles to come here, but they never had the chance to go back. Facing the ground full of corpses, thousands of people fell into an unimaginable silence. Just who was so crazy and cruel? Something unexpected happened today. The game company gave me a picture of Ling Tian. I happily uploaded it. Then I wrote a sentence. I uploaded Ling Tian. Everyone, see if it looks like him. Then I sent it. Then I realized that the words and the picture didn't match. It could only be the words, or it could only be the picture. Now, the words have been uploaded, but the picture hasn't. Chapter 2109. A crazy executioner had slaughtered so many people in one night, and there had been no news of it at all. The city lord of Lone Bamboo City in Yarrow Emperor's Heaven was livid. In one night, such a shocking case had happened under his rule. Reporting to the city lord, the count is clear. There are a total of 187 corpses here. A young man said softly, including the 324 people outside the city, there are 1,311 corpses. Among these corpses, 210 belong to the Ghost Hunter, 550 belong to the Iron Sword sect, and the rest belong to the Ice sect. There are 412 corpses. All of them are from the sects. Then, this is clearly a vendetta in Jianghu. The city lord's words determined the nature of this case. As long as it wasn't a murderous maniac, it was fine. The other party clearly had a target. This way, the responsibility of the government would be reduced to the minimum. The city lord's words almost drove the three sects crazy. What does the city lord of Lone Bamboo City mean by this? Bleach yourself? In other words, this is a vendetta in Jianghu. You have nothing to do with it. You want us three sects to deal with it ourselves. Of course, Jianghu's grudges are Jianghu's grudges, but we can't handle it right now. Even if the dead are Jianghu people, they are still people from the sects. There are still many lives, aren't there? You're just going to ignore it. Under normal circumstances, Jianghu's matters are Jianghu's matters. Both sides don't welcome the intervention of the government. However, The current situation was very strange. The other party was too ferocious. It had already exceeded the scope of what the three great sects could handle. Originally, he wanted to use this matter to find more help, but now, it seemed that the City Lord was going to slip away. The City Lord seemed to have received an important piece of news. Then, he said a few words sanctimoniously, excused himself, and turned around to leave. He left as if he was floating in the air. We are all friends. It is natural for us to help each other. Since you are here, I will naturally give you the green light. As long as you don't provoke any criticism from the people, I will do my best to help you. But I just received a secret order from my superiors. I need to deal with it immediately. Goodbye. If there's anything you want to do, feel free to do so. Just like that, after a bunch of nonsense that seemed pretty on the surface but was actually completely useless, he instantly slipped away and disappeared without a trace. The three sects were so angry that smoke was coming out of their heads. What should we do? What should we do now? The leaders gathered together with a worried look on their faces. These people had been fighting for positions in their respective sects in the Black Cloud Sky continent. They had been fighting each other for hundreds of thousands of years. Between them, there was a blood debt, and they could not live under the same sky. Everyone's heart felt very strange. However, for the survival of his own sect, he had no choice but to do so. The current situation was not complicated at all. It could even be said that it was very clear. There was only one person on the other side. As long as they could deal with this person, everything would be settled. But this person's strength was ridiculously high. According to the hawk-nosed elder's description, this person's strength was at least at the peak of the heaven being level. His moves were superb, and he even had an indestructible sword as support. His killing power was so strong that it was almost impossible to estimate. If it was a one-on-one fight, most of the people here would just be sending themselves to death. At least, he was also at the peak of the heaven being level. Doesn't that mean that he could be a saint-level expert? Of course, this was to a certain extent an overestimation by the hawk-nosed elder. Chu Yang's strength did not seem to be that exaggerated. The current situation is that each sect has dispatched at least 2,500 elites. Such a huge force, and all of them belong to the Jianghu organizations. If they really gather together, it is simply unrealistic. We can only split up and act separately. The Great Elder of the Ghost Clan sighed. The Iron Sword sect elder also sighed. But the problem now is that if we gather together, the enemy will not come. But if we scatter, the enemy will take advantage of the situation and attack. He will use all kinds of methods to kill all of us. And on our side, there is no one who can resist him directly. It was this seemingly unsolvable problem that made everyone frown. Currently, there were only a dozen or so people present who could withstand half a strike from the mysterious murderer. However, they couldn't possibly take care of every single one of them. Moreover, if the enemy used a sneak attack, even if everyone was present and resisted with all their strength, they might not be able to prevent people from being killed. Should we inform the Mo Yuntian officials? Get support from there? The Ice Sect elder's face darkened. Please don't. The first elder of the ghost territory could not help but turn pale. Now, our three families have become the key targets of observation, and even have been noticed by the Heaven Emperor. Maybe we will be sentenced to death at any time. If that's the case, then our three families will really be annihilated. If we inform them now, and they come to arrest or capture those people, then we will really have nothing to do with it. In the eyes of the Heaven Emperor, our three families have only brought people out once, and we did not put in any effort. I'm afraid we will feel even worse. Not only will our people die in vain, but we will also get no benefits. The others nodded. What the Great Elder said makes sense. But with our current manpower, can we catch the enemy? The Iron Sword sect elder was obviously a little uneasy after the two assassinations. He knew that he did not have the strength to do so. Let's cut off all means of retreat. The current situation is that we can't trap the wolf without sacrificing the child. The ghost sect elder's eyes showed a gloomy look. We have 8,000 people here, and we will be stationed in 20 places. Basically, We can have a peak-level celestial being expert not far away. As for the early celestial being stage, we must ensure that there are at least 3 experts in each place. In this way, if any place is attacked, we can hold on for a period of time. During this period of time, we only need to shout and we will be able to arrive in the shortest time possible. In other words, this operation may sacrifice 300 to 400 people. However, the price of these 300 to 400 people in exchange for the capture of that bloody executioner. I think it is still worth it. Great Elder's brilliant plan. The others praised loudly, expressing their agreement. After all, it may not be so unlucky that it will be the team from my sect, right? It is only a 1 in 3 chance. As for the other sects sacrificing 300 to 400 people, what does it have to do with me? Of course, on the surface, I still have to express regret. It must be pretentious. As for the people from Mo Yunqian's military, I believe that they will get the news sooner or later and come here. Even now, they are already on their way here. The great elder of the Ghost Clan said with a malicious look in his eyes, "We must finish this before they arrive. We must do everything possible to not give them a chance to speak." Yes. Then let's split up and act separately. Divide the experts of our sect into different teams. Especially remember, we must raise our vigilance. Okay. Speaking of which, although this mysterious expert killed so many of our people, I don't really blame him in my heart. The ghost sect elder looked at the corpses on the field, his eyes filled with grief and indignation. But the words he said shocked everyone. Why is that? It is very simple. Since this mysterious expert has the ability to kill so many people silently, then he must have the ability to destroy all these people without leaving any trace. And this person's goal is clear. He is obviously from Chu Yang's side. He can be said to be our mortal enemy. Such a mortal enemy, no matter what he does, it is reasonable. But he still chose to keep the corpses. This in itself is a kind of understanding. Previously, when he killed people outside the city gate in broad daylight, it provided a kind of backing. Because, with just these corpses, the families of these dead people will not be troubled in Mo Yunqian. This is the evidence of sacrifice. If both body and soul are destroyed, there will be no evidence at all. That would really be harming the whole family. Although this mysterious assassin was ruthless in his actions and killed countless people, in the end, he did not really kill to the last one and left some leeway. The ghost sect elder's malicious face also faintly had a trace of admiration. If I were him, facing such a situation, I might not be able to do it so thoroughly too. Although everyone felt that these words were not so pleasing to the ears, they could only nod their heads in agreement. Because what the ghost sect elder said was not wrong at all. Too many deaths actually did not have anything to do with the 3 great sects. Getting into such a state, it was entirely the 3 great sects who had only themselves to blame. But Lord Heavenly Emperor wanted to take his anger out on the 3 great sects. This was also something that could not be helped. As for failing to complete the mission, beheading the whole family was even more common. But the person already died while carrying out the mission. There was even a corpse as evidence. For your mission, you even paid with your life. Already like this, you still want to take your anger out on his family? That would not be justifiable. Still insisting on doing things your way, that would be the standard behavior of a bastard. No matter how Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun covered the sky with one hand, he also did not dare to take the risk in this vast world. Although this mysterious assassin killed many people, to be able to achieve keeping all the corpses, it was equivalent to protecting the families of these victims. Could it be that they should still be grateful to this executioner? Everyone felt that it was strange to the extreme. The people belonging to the 3 great sects all entered Lone Bamboo City. After Chu Yang recovered from the internal injuries, he found an opportunity to meet up with everyone. 3 great sects, close to 1,000 people. Presumably, they should have turned out in full force and came to this Lone Bamboo City. Looking at their posture, if you all don't die, I'm afraid they won't withdraw. Chapter 21:10. Chu Yang said solemnly, "The situation now is obvious. Everyone, be mentally prepared." Everyone was silent, and their faces were especially ugly. Those who could live until now were all calm and determined people. Even if the situation was so bad, they would not have the intention to waver. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh and said, almost 1,000 people came. This is basically the foundation of the three big sects. Bai Yuchen was the number 3 person in the sect previously. His judgment was undoubtedly very accurate. Since they came to capture us, those who are below the standard of martial saints can't be brought out at all. If this standard is used as the criterion, then the three big sects only have 10,000 people at most. This is still the result of hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance. Looks like they are really determined to capture us this time. Bai Yuchen's voice was filled with a kind of vicissitude and sadness. His words made everyone's faces even uglier. Don't tell me that there is no righteous person in our sect. Is there no one who can distinguish right from wrong? Although Che Shuchu was a young expert of the new generation, he was after all a young man and lacked basic experience. At this moment, he was so agitated that his face was flushed red. Usually, everyone is so sanctimonious, and their words are powerful. It seems that each and every one of them takes the righteousness of saving the martial world and saving the people of the world as their own responsibility. Why is it that at this time, they can only succumb to their mistakes and come to kill us? That's right. The beginning of this matter was clearly due to him forcefully snatching women. Could it be that in the eyes of Lord Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud Heaven, forcefully snatching women is something that should be done? Someone was filled with anger. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh. It's just reality. In the eyes of Heavenly Emperor, snatching women is undoubtedly a big crime. If the one who did such a thing was not Tai Yuchen but any one of us, I'm afraid that we would have long been ordered to be executed by Heavenly Emperor and announced to the world. But the problem is that the one who snatched women is Tai Yuchen, and Tai Yuchen was actually killed. Bai Yuchen chuckled, full of ridicule. Haha, other people's children are not children, but his own children are his treasures. Someone said, full of ridicule, how can such a narrow-minded person be qualified to oversee a world? How can such a despicable act convince people? How disappointing. Heh. Bai Yuchen sneered and said, I've already said it. It's just reality. You guys don't have to comment on what you're angry about. In the end, you're just unwilling to accept it. Let me ask all of you, if all of you didn't come to the Eastern Royal Sky and weren't forced to the point of no return, if all of you were still in the sect, would you have been part of the group that came to annihilate us? This question made everyone lower their heads. Only Che Shuchu said loudly, I won't, I definitely won't. Bai Yuchen sneered, maybe you won't, because you're still young and haven't recognized reality. However, the reality was that most people would do the same. Since this was the reality, what was there to complain about? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthweir, that was all. At worst, he would just die. What was there to be indignant about? This was Jianghu. This is the essence of the martial world. The Heavenly Emperor loves his son dearly and doesn't treat other people's children as his own. This is a matter of course. Although it was not in accordance with the law, it was pitiful. You guys are so impressive, why don't you go and be a Heavenly Emperor? Heavenly Emperor Black Cloud has the ability to become a Heavenly Emperor of a region. He has the qualifications to stand above laws and regulations. Since things already reached this point, is there any use in talking? What's competing now is whose fist is harder. The so-called reason is nothing more than dog fart. The so-called fairness is nothing more than a joke. The so-called legal system is just empty talk to those in power. The so-called popular will, what's the use at this moment? At least, it's meaningless to us right now. If you can't see through this point, don't talk about roaming Jianghu. Although Bai Yuchen's voice was soft, his tone and countenance were stern. If not for Villa Lord Chu, our corpses would have long rotted away. Being able to live until now is already all thanks to Villa Lord Chu risking his life and doing his best. You guys still want to make a ruckus here endlessly. This old man is losing face for you all. Sect elites. Pooh. The words made everyone's faces flush red. Hanging their heads, no one opened their mouths to speak anymore. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh and said, now that things have come to this, saying this is also useless. Talking about it, Everyone is just somewhat unconvinced in their hearts and grumbling, that's all. What should be done is still done. This point, I still believe. Seeing that Chu Yang spoke, Bai Yu Chen also took advantage of the situation and no longer scolded the crowd. He said respectfully, yes, what Villa Lord said is right. Actually, how could he not know that these people's anger was just because they were unreconciled and unconvinced? It did not affect their actions at all. But if this kind of anger could not be quelled immediately, they would probably be impulsive sooner or later one day too. One person being impulsive might very well implicate everyone here. This was something that must be guarded against. Now that things have come to this, everyone, fight it out with him. Several people's faces flushed red, roaring in a low voice. Right. Fight it out with them. If he doesn't, don't blame us for being unjust. Fight it out. Fight it out. Chu Yang gave a low cry, silence. Everyone's seething emotions immediately quietened down. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Yang while panting heavily. Here, I have something to announce. Chu Yang's face was serious. The situation in front of us is very serious. Any disguises you put on now will be useless and meaningless to them. So, during this period, no one is allowed to go out. No reason, no exception. Chu Yang threw down 2 space rings and said, inside these are the food and water you need, as well as some elixirs for cultivation. It's better than nothing. After a moment of silence, Bai Yu Chen suddenly sighed. Villa Lord, let us go out. We might as well fight it out with them directly. It can also be considered as ending this feud and saying goodbye to the past. Everyone raised their heads at the same time. Obviously, this was not Bai Yu Chen's idea. They were all people of the pugilistic world, and all of them had good skills. Which one of them was not proud and arrogant? If the enemy came, yet he could only hole up in the ground like a coward and hide like a mouse, that feeling was simply worse than death. Chu Yang was silent for a moment before he said, no, you guys can't make a move, let alone show up. Because as long as you guys make a move, regardless of whether it causes casualties or not, your relatives and clans over there are destined to be finished. Che Shuchu's face flushed red. But we've already fought with Meng Wuya and their army for 80,000 miles. Those who should be offended have already been offended. What's there to be afraid of? It's not the same. The previous battle and the enemy this time are fundamentally different. Chu Yang said solemnly, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, as a Heavenly Emperor, if he takes his anger out on his family because of this, it will undoubtedly appear narrow-minded. Furthermore, the negative effects will only be greater. Regarding this, even Yuan Tianji also has to be wary. But if you guys make a move to deal with people from our sect, their trusted aides or relatives in the sect will come to make things difficult, or destroy and persecute. It's impossible to guard against. So this time, you guys definitely can't make a move. Chu Yang smiled slightly and said, I think your family is already suffering enough right now. Don't make things worse for them. Since you guys are following me, then I have to take this aspect into consideration. Bai Yu Chen and the others stood up at the same time. Their faces were full of gratitude as they said from the bottom of their hearts, Manor Lord, we are infinitely grateful for your kind intentions. Thank you very much. Chu Yang smiled faintly. When a real man does things, there are things to do and things not to do. It's convenient for others and convenient for oneself. But I have to say the ugly words first. We've already done the best we can. Furthermore, even if the people over there were killed by me, most of their corpses were still intact. I've also thought about them. But even if that's the case, if the family over there still suffers from the hands of evil, then I really have no other choice. This is all I can do. Yes. Everyone was sincerely convinced. As a leader, Chu Yang could put himself in their shoes and think so carefully for his subordinates. Everyone was already indescribably grateful. Our current strength isn't strong enough to fight head-on with the other party. But I believe that one day, we will kill our way to Ink Cloud Heaven and find Yuan Tianming to take back this blood debt. We will also be able to take back our family over there. Chu Yang let out a deep breath. So everyone, please work hard. Everyone watched silently as Chu Yang waved his hand and left. Chu Yang's words echoed in everyone's hearts. In this chaotic world, strength is the most fundamental thing. Everyone felt warm in their hearts. Ever since the incident, they had been worried that their family members would be harmed. They had been on tenterhooks, unable to sleep or eat well. But when Chu Yang's words came out, everyone suddenly felt their hearts calm down. Only with hope would there be a vision for the future. Only with this vision would there be the motivation to continue. Manor Lord has already thought of everything that we can take care of and do. He's even done it to the extreme. If something still happens over there after doing all this, then there's really no other way. Worry is still worry, but it's ultimately beyond our reach. When Chu Yang came out again, he had regained that sickly young man's demeanor from before. The entire courtyard was filled with the smell of medicine. Such a strong smell of medicine had attracted no less than hundreds of people to use their divine senses to explore or come to check. But when they saw that it was a young man with tuberculosis who would die in a few days, they all lost their interest. At this moment, it was already close to noon. Chu Yang was still coughing non-stop. He closed the door with difficulty and walked out with his back hunched. The direction he was heading was the direction of the local food market. The bleak cold wind blew on his body. His tattered clothes that had already turned white from washing fluttered in the wind. It was a desolate sight. Everyone who saw his figure couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Chapter 21:11. The young man turned a few corners and quietly disappeared into the crowd. From the bustling market, he turned into a dark and damp alley. Chu Yang clearly felt that there was no longer any divine sense paying attention to this place. Suddenly, he straightened his body and his divine sense instantly spread out, covering a radius of 30 feet. Within the range of this divine sense, no one would be able to see or hear anything for a certain period of time. Chu Yang quickly grabbed at the ground and the entire ground was instantly covered with a layer of soil that was 30 feet deep. The topmost layer of soil was still attached to rocks and there was even some vegetable and horse dung on the rocks. Chu Yang's body flashed and he disappeared. The ground that was more than 10 feet in radius once again sank back into the ground without a sound. Once again, it was seamlessly connected to the houses on both sides. No one would know or think that there was actually a tunnel here. A living person had once disappeared here. It was not only because this method of hiding the entrance was too unreasonable and unconventional. This place was really too dilapidated and too poor. So much so that after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a vagrant just happened to walk past. After looking around and seeing that there was no one around, he took off his pants and snorted, sprinkling a perverted substance on the ground. Of course, this vagrant did not notice that his urine had actually penetrated the ground very quickly. He only shivered in pleasure, raised his head and sighed deeply. He seemed to be enjoying himself. After he was done, he left. Chu Yang, dressed in black, was shuttling through the ground at lightning speed. However, such speed did not make the slightest sound of breaking through the air. Sensing the movement above, he finally reached the end of the tunnel. He popped his head out from a similarly desolate house and vigilantly scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he flew up. Then, with a whoosh, he flew high into the sky. His divine sense spread out without any concealment and enveloped the area below. Under a series of coincidences, Chu Yang's cultivation had improved greatly. When he reached the celestial being level, he directly reached the peak of the initial stage of the celestial being level. His overall combat strength was no less than that of a peak celestial being level expert. However, compared to his divine sense cultivation, it was still far inferior. His divine sense was already extremely powerful due to his many fortuitous encounters. Now, it had improved even more. With the help of the heaven-multiplying divine technique and the different attributes of his divine sense, it could be said to be extremely powerful. It was not below the level of a sage. With such a powerful divine sense, in the current Lone Bamboo City, it could kill any god that stood in its way, or Buddha that stood in its way. No one dared to block its sharpness. Such a powerful divine sense was like a huge net that covered the entire Lone Bamboo City from all directions. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curled into a sneer. He carefully and quickly identified everything that he wanted to confirm. The moment this divine sense rushed out, in the inn where a certain empress was staying, Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who were both saint-level experts, were shocked. Who was this person? How could such a super expert come to Lone Bamboo City? The two of them simultaneously spread out their divine senses, wanting to make contact with it. However, they were shocked to find that their divine senses could not get close to the other party's core. What did this mean? The two of them looked at each other in shock. How could there be such a thing? The two of them retracted their divine senses at the same time. The other party obviously did not want to be probed. This was certain. If the two of them rashly probed and angered the other party, such a powerful enemy would appear out of nowhere. Moreover, they still had to take care of Master Ma. That would be a big problem. But in the next moment, the two of them had a new discovery. After that powerful divine sense searched around, it seemed to spread out aimlessly. Then, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. It came and went in such a hurry. It came and went without a trace. It was really strange. The two of them wiped the cold sweat off their heads at the same time. Uncle Hu still had a lingering fear. Who was this person? It must be known that the experts above the saint level were all famous. Even if they were both saint level experts, there was a considerable gap between the beginner saint level and the saint level. Unless they were like the divine soul of calamity and had the trait of being immortal, a beginner saint-level expert would definitely not be a match for a saint-level expert. Even if Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, the two beginner saint-level experts, joined hands, they might not be able to withstand one move from a saint-level expert. Uncle Ma's expression was solemn. Could this person be Mo Yuntian's subordinate? Would Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian send out such a heavyweight expert? It can't be. Uncle Hu was a little suspicious. It's hard to say. Uncle Ma sighed deeply. If such an expert really came out, that Chu Yang would not be able to escape this time. Even the two of them together could not defeat him. What could a mere Chu Yang do? In the room, Tan Tan's two eyes, one big and one small, shone fiercely. Although this divine sense was extremely strong and seemed to be boundless, Tan Tan still felt a trace of a very familiar and real feeling from it. Is it Senior Brother? When did Senior Brother become so strong? Isn't this a little too ridiculously strong? Yes, Itchy, he is indeed here. Tan Tan suddenly. He felt his heart boiling. Senior Brother, I'm here to help you. Xie Dan Feng, you blessed little girl, I'm always looking for you. Are you touched? Chu Yang's body was like a meteorite falling to the ground. He fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. His target was clear. Mixed with surging and biting cold killing intent, it also carried infinite elegance and calmness. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was like stone. Must kill. Chu Yang had never been a bloodthirsty person. But this time, he must take the initiative to wield the butcher's knife and personally kill all the opponents here. There was no basis for this. There was even no gratitude or grudges. There was only a clear reality. If the enemy does not die, then I die. It was so simple, so pure. This was the iron-blooded law of the martial world. Chu Yang's target this time was a big courtyard in a city. This place used to be the residence of a wealthy family. When Chu Yang went out for a stroll to observe the situation, he passed by this place several times. However, in just a short period of 2 hours, the people living here had already been replaced. Moreover, the people living here had already been settled down. As for the family of the rich family, they did not leave the house. They just disappeared into thin air. Why did they disappear? Where did they disappear to? Chu Yang knew in his heart. He believed that the Lone Bamboo City Lord's heart was as clear as snow. But the Demon Empress had ordered him to do his best to make things convenient for Mo Yuntian's people. For this kind of thing, he could only open one eye and close the other. Moreover, the people who were killed were ultimately from the human race, not the demon race. At this time, it was really not suitable to pursue the matter. Chu Yang and this rich family naturally did not know each other. In his heart, he did not have much thoughts of revenge. But now, the people living in his house must be killed. It could also be considered as revenge for him. Or, it could be said that the goal was different, but the result was the same. Chu Yang was 1,000 feet high in the air. Looking down, he could clearly see that these people were busy in the courtyard. From time to time, some people were paying attention to the movements outside. They seemed to be on high alert. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. Like a goshawk searching for food, he swept down. Before he landed, the sword intent transformed into what harm slaughtering the entire world had already swept out wildly. The cold sword energy had already enveloped the entire courtyard in an instant. It was an indiscriminate attack in a large area. Puff puff puff. Countless piercingly cold sword chi suddenly descended and danced in all directions. There was nothing they could not destroy, nothing they could not break. Even the hard stone walls were pierced through with a single blow. As for the empty courtyard, the sword energy was even more rampant. Those who blocked it were swept away. Enemy attack. Someone shouted. Without a doubt, this was a message. Chu Yang was already mentally prepared for this. He completely ignored it. With a sword strike, his body swept down like a hurricane. A calamity sword bloomed with an earth-shattering light. He started a massacre. It was not an evenly matched battle, but a one-sided extremely bloody massacre. For Chu Yang, who had the strength close to the peak of heavenly human stage and had the assistance of the calamity sword, there was no opponent on the spot. From start to finish, it was only a moment. The courtyard was already full of corpses. Blood and broken limbs were scattered everywhere. It wasn't even noon yet, but Chu Yang had already launched 3 ambushes. This was far from what the people of Moyunshan and the other 2 sects had expected. Who would have thought that the cruel and bloody executioner would not stop temporarily after 2 fatal attacks? He even chose to launch an attack at noon, when the sun was at its brightest in the sky. What kind of guts, what kind of boldness, and what kind of arrogance? The autumn wind was still bleak, but the noon sun was warm and pleasant. But in this warm and pleasant atmosphere, Chu Yang's sudden arrival with a cold and dense killing intent made these people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. At this moment, there were many corpses strewn all over the room. They were killed by the sword energy that pierced through the stone walls. They were caught off guard and died. It could be said that these people were the most innocent ones to have died so far. There were also some people who came from all directions. Some of them shouted loudly and pounced forward. They did not care about their own lives to stop Chu Yang. A heavenly human stage expert rode his sword and came from the sky. He was full of vigor. Around him, there were 7 or 8 peak martial saint stage experts. They attacked ferociously without any regard for their own safety. At this moment, they were all fighting with their lives on the line. Chu Yang laughed hoarsely. Playing with your lives? Excuse me. Instantly, the sword energy shot up into the sky. It only clashed with the heavenly human stage expert for a short while. Then, it took advantage of the momentum and retreated. With a magnificent sword light, it went straight into the sky. In a flash, it had already disappeared. Poof! That celestial being expert fell to the ground, covered in blood. His sword had already been turned into iron shavings, and he was unable to resist at all. Then, Chu Yang neatly pierced 17 or 18 bloody holes in his body. Chapter 21:12. From the west, the great elder of Iron Sword clan was hurrying over with his men. They were less than 1,000 feet away from the courtyard. However, at this moment, he heard the sounds of battle coming to a sudden stop. Had the enemy escaped? So many people couldn't even hold on for such a short period of time. That person's strength was so strong, and he was so sharp. He didn't give the enemy any chance to take advantage of him. Just as the great elder was feeling unhappy, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. Then, a sword mountain came crashing down from the sky. It came out of the blue, and it came out of the blue. It came out of the blue, and it came to kill. Now that the Tribulation Sword Master had broken through to the celestial being level, the power he could unleash was unimaginable. At least, it had already surpassed the limits of martial artists of the same level. Chu Yang performed the 30 moves of Tribulation Sword technique one by one. Every single one of his moves was enhanced by the energy of the sword. Just the sword intent alone was already invincible. Coupled with the powerful activation of the tribulation sword, the exquisite use of the heaven-splitting divine technique, the limitless supply of energy from his dantian, and the endless murderous intent of the tribulation sword master. With such an extreme boost, the power that could be unleashed was simply enough to shock the heavens and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. The great elder turned around and instinctively drew his sword to meet the attack. Just as the sword was in his hand, he suddenly remembered that this was no longer the divine weapon he had used for hundreds of thousands of years. Just because of this carelessness, the sword mountain had already smashed into the crowd. The great elder howled and flew up on his sword. He chased after the black shadow in the sky, hoping to hold this butcher back. However, he could only see the enemy's back getting further and further away. It was another strike that sent him flying 1,000 miles away. He couldn't help but stare at Chu Yang with hatred. Chu Yang's method of action was simple and pure. He only used one move. Just one move. No matter if the move succeeded or not, he didn't want to fight. He even used the remaining power of the move to retreat. He didn't stop. If it was an ordinary enemy, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even if there were losses, it would be limited. However, if the Tribulation Sword Master at the Celestial Being level used his Tribulation Sword and Tribulation Sword intent to retreat, it would be very, very fatal. It could even be infinitely fatal. With just a single touch, 70 to 80 people had already died here forever. The survivors of the Iron Sword sect were all dumbstruck. Previously, he hadn't made any preparations, hadn't been on guard, and hadn't been too vigilant. Even if he couldn't withstand it, he still had something to say. But this time, they were almost fully prepared. The strongest Great Elder was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, but even so, he was unable to block the attack. Instead, he was slaughtered by the other party and left calmly. In the blink of an eye, the orderly formation of the army was reduced to a pile of flesh and blood. If this continued, wouldn't they all be killed by the enemy sooner or later? This is the fourth attack today. Chu Yang silently muttered in his heart. Then, his entire body flew away at lightning speed. In the north, the Great Elder of the Ghost Territory had brought the most people with him. Naturally, his momentum was the greatest. However, was it really easy to do things with so many people? Not necessarily. Just as they were about to enter the area where the commotion came from, a bright sword light suddenly appeared in front of them. The moment they saw the sword light had turned into a blazing sun in the sky, and they could no longer look at it directly. A steady and cold voice said, "Who in the world can stop the sword master?" Then, the dazzling sword light turned into a mighty Yangtze River, the Yangtze River's 3 layers wolf, one wave higher than the other. The Great Elder of the Ghost Territory was shocked. He shouted, "Everyone, be careful. Move to the sides immediately." As he spoke, he drew his sword and went forward. In this trip, the Great Elder had the highest cultivation. At this moment, the soldiers were in danger. Naturally, he didn't pass on his responsibility to others. The sword light didn't change its direction at all. It collided with the Great Elder of the Ghost Territory without any tricks. The Great Elder shouted, "Bastard! We were fooled. This sword light only had the momentum to intimidate people. It wasn't the main force at all." He guessed right. This sword light was just a sword intent. Although it wasn't completely intimidating, its lethality was very limited. Especially for experts, it didn't pose any threat at all. As for Chu Yang himself, he had already driven the Calamity Sword and rushed into the crowd. The massacre started again. The Calamity Sword was waved again. This time, Chu Yang didn't hold back at all. From one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms, he kept waving his sword until "Don't hold back my blade" after killing the world. 30 moves, he went all out again. Chu Yang's dantian was emptied again in a very short time. There wasn't a single drop left. Finally, a huge bright ball of light suddenly exploded in the crowd. It turned into a monstrous sword energy that shot up to the sky. Then, it turned into an invincible dragon. It started from the front of the crowd and rushed forward with unparalleled momentum. Wherever it passed, Heads would fly up, and severed limbs would fly into the air. Before the severed limbs at the front could fly to the highest point, the colorful and resplendent sword light had already pierced through the back of the team like a long dragon. It didn't even look back all the way. Swoosh! It turned into the last little bright light of the end of the scorching sun. Then, it disappeared without a sound. The great elder of the ghost clan trembled all over. He almost vomited blood. Although the opponent's sword energy wasn't powerful enough, it still succeeded in stopping him for a moment. He had the cultivation of a beginner saint, but he couldn't save the people on his side. When he had completely destroyed the opponent's sword energy and was about to turn around to attack, he only saw the back of the opponent. He couldn't catch up. Only a hoarse voice could be heard. There are too few people from the Ghost Clan who died these 2 days. Today, I'm here to make up for it. A long, hoarse laugh seemed to come from countless places in all directions. Then, it returned to silence. Scoundrel! Stay here. Fight me to the death. The great elder of the Ghost Clan roared to the sky. His voice was as shrill as a ghost's. However, the opponent didn't make any sound. Obviously, he had gone far away. When he saw the loss of the scene, the great elder of the Ghost Clan was really angry. He coughed with a red face. He resisted the urge to vomit blood. Just this one wave of attacks from the enemy had reduced the total of 1,200 people of the 3 teams by more than 800 people. The ground was covered in a thick layer of flesh and blood. Puff 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 puff. Until now, the broken limbs and heads that flew in the air fell down one after another. They fell on the flowing blood on the ground, making dull sounds. Everyone was dumbfounded. The enemy was so fierce and ruthless. How could they be like this? This is the 5th time. The moment Chu Yang returned to the tunnel, he relaxed. His body staggered and almost fell down. His whole body was almost drained of all strength. He was really out of strength. Just now, he had used the sword energy to entangle the great elder of the Ghost Clan, who had the highest cultivation. Then, he used the tribulation sword technique to slaughter the 3 teams together. It seemed like a glorious achievement, but in fact, he had exhausted all his cultivation. If it weren't for the heaven-splitting divine technique, which allowed him to recover faster than ordinary techniques, and the huge spiritual energy from the tribulation space, Chu Yang wouldn't have been able to hold on with his own strength. In one day, he faced a cloud of experts and attacked 5 times consecutively. If he counted the dozens of attacks he launched last night, it was equivalent to launching close to 20 attacks in one day, with the strength of one person. In one day and one night, he had buried close to 4,000 top expert. Close to 4,000 Heaven Imperial Court experts who had at least reached the level of saint. In the entire Heaven Imperial Court, among all the Heavenly Man experts, even those at the peak of Heavenly Man level, there was absolutely no one who could achieve such a glorious achievement. Just as Chu Yang said, below the saints, I am the best. There was absolutely no exaggeration in this sentence. Moreover, even if the beginner saints were included, they might not be able to achieve such a terrifying and shocking achievement as Chu Yang. After staying in the tunnel for a while and catching his breath, Chu Yang finally recovered some of his energy. Then, he slowly walked to the other side of the tunnel. When he reached the other side, he still carefully used his divine senses to check the movements above. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, Chu Yang took a deep breath and slowly lifted the entire ground. Just as he was about to fly up, he unexpectedly saw water droplets dripping down from the cracks. Could it be that it suddenly rained outside? Chu Yang frowned and sniffed subconsciously. Suddenly, he felt a fishy smell. As a man, Chu Yang was really too familiar with this smell. Damn it! Who peed here? Chu Yang cursed his bad luck. In a moment of carelessness, he almost let the urine into his mouth. He couldn't help but feel angry. Who was so uncivilized? Could it be that his bad luck wasn't over yet? In his annoyance, he flashed out. A skinny youth with a sallow face and a hunched back walked out weakly with his head lowered. He used what seemed to be his last remaining water cloud coins to buy some vegetables, and also bought some discounted sesame seed cakes and steamed buns that had already turned cold. He walked back with his back against the wall, trembling all the way. After taking 2 steps, he coughed for a while. It was a heart-wrenching cough. That thin and weak figure, under the whistling autumn wind, was so pitiful. Who would have thought that such a thin and weak, cowering, pitiful and weak young man was the bloody executioner who had just slaughtered thousands of experts by himself with only one sword? Was this the return of the king? After walking out of the market in the slums and returning to the street, he saw flashing figures everywhere. Countless people were scurrying around with red eyes, looking for something. As they searched, they cursed incessantly. Damn it! Bastard! Bastard! Cruel and merciless beast! This goddamn executioner! Chapter 21:13. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, nothing happened to the person who bumped into him, but the weak and pitiful youth screamed and flew out like a kite with its string cut. He fell to the ground far away in a sorry state. The food in his hands and some cold and even hard buns were scattered on the ground. The person who suddenly walked out from the corner was a man in black. There was a skull embroidered on his chest. He was the demon ghost expert. He had been moving quickly to search for traces of the enemy. Suddenly, he felt that he bumped into someone. Subconsciously, he covered his chest with his hands to be safe. When he looked carefully, he saw that the person he bumped into was a weak and malnourished youth. He could not help but shout, "Bad luck." If he had known it was such a guy, he would not have been so afraid. He couldn't help but feel anger rising in his heart. He threw out a purple cloud coin and shouted, "Scram!" This time, it seemed like he was giving alms, but in fact, he was killing. This purple cloud coin was flying straight towards the youth's neck. Right at this moment, it should have been before he made his move, but the youth seemed to have been knocked into and groaned in pain. He tilted his head, and the purple cloud coin stuck to his neck and stabbed into the ground. The hidden chi on the purple cloud coin still cut a bloody wound on his neck. The youth could not help but cry out in pain, his entire body trembling. "Hey!" The demon ghost expert frowned and muttered, "Bastard, your luck is not bad. You got lucky." He turned and left. But he did not realize that a faint divine sense had already attached itself to his body. Some kind people saw that this person had already left and hurried over to help the weak and thin youth up. Chu Yang trembled and thanked them. These people saw that although Chu Yang was injured, his spirit was still good. They shook their heads and sighed, walking away quickly. But they did not forget to pick up the purple cloud coin and put it in Chu Yang's hand. Such a weak and sick youth, there were actually people who bullied him. Did the heavens really have no eyes? However, as commoners, this was the most they dared to do. They didn't even dare to curse out loud. This was not cowardice, but the sorrow of being a person at the bottom. Cursing out loud might be satisfying, but cursing out loud might lead to death. The lives of these people were nothing compared to the lives of those powerful people. They could only swallow their anger. Or, if they saw someone who was in the same situation as them, they would help if they could. Other than that, they really couldn't do anything. They didn't dare to do anything. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as he held the purple cloud coin tightly in his hand. He could clearly feel a warm current flowing from the purple cloud coin in his palm. Leaning against the wall, he picked up the vegetables and cold steamed buns one by one and staggered back home, closing the door tightly. Outside, the workers of the medicine hall who were watching all of this couldn't help but sigh sympathetically. However, after being bullied like this, the two of them did not dare to curse back. That's right, if it were him, wouldn't he also not dare to scold him? However, the expert of the demon clan who had bumped into Chu Yang was only a few thousand feet away from the place where the incident had occurred. But, he suddenly felt that it was difficult to breathe. It was as if a pair of cold big hands were strangling his neck, constantly increasing the strength and tightening. "Who is it?" he shouted in horror. As far as the eye could see, there was clearly nothing around, but where did the feeling of being strangled come from? Although it was illusory, it felt more and more real, more and more real. The next moment, a black smoke rose in front of him, and a skull appeared out of nowhere. It sneered eerily, "Bastard! How dare you? Do you know who you have offended?" This expert of the demon clan trembled. He suddenly remembered a legendary item, and couldn't help but cry out in horror, the god of calamity. Before he could finish, his neck was twisted by some inexplicable force. Only a gloomy voice was left, "Great tonic, not bad." Then, a black smoke quietly drifted away. That night, everyone on this street inexplicably found that there was an extra bag of money in their homes. Inside, there were Shueyun coins, Ziyun coins, and even Zixia coins. Some found it in the place where they were cooking, some found it when they opened their blankets at night, and some found it directly on the table where they were eating. Without exception, there was a small note inside: "Good people will be rewarded." Everyone who had obtained this money tightly guarded this secret. Not because of anything else, but because this money was really too big. Once it was spread out, their families would be the first to suffer, causing unnecessary disasters. Sometimes, having too much money was not luck, but disaster. It was just that in everyone's home, a nameless longevity tablet was quietly set up. It said, "Good people will be rewarded. May our benefactor live a long life." Every one of these people worked cautiously as usual, but the quality of their lives improved a lot. Some even began to plan whether it was time to send their children to school. Not only these people, but for a long time in the future, almost every poor family in Lone Bamboo City, as long as they knew their place and didn't do evil, received this kind of money. For generations, everyone had already accepted their fates, and that was how they would live their lives. In fact, their parents and ancestors lived like this. They also thought that they would live like this, and their children and grandchildren would live like this. However, after this incident, everything that followed changed suddenly and subtly. Good people will be rewarded. Even the heavens had eyes. Even if heaven didn't have eyes, people still had eyes. As long as you worked hard, you would be rewarded. No one knew that a piece of paper and a bag of money without any sound had changed the lives of many people. Or as the note said, good people will naturally be rewarded. That night, Chu Yang didn't go back to meet up with Bai Yuchen and the others. He simply slept in this thatched hut as a consumptive young man. Everything was so appropriate, as if this young man had always existed. That night, the noises were unceasingly heard throughout the night. The sound of the wind and the cries of the crane could be heard everywhere. It seemed as if every bush and tree was an enemy. Even though Chu Yang had disguised himself as a sickly youth in the slums, he could still clearly feel the prelude of the coming storm. That kind of silent oppression enveloped the entire Lone Bamboo City. That night, another 100 people died mysteriously. These people who had lost their lives had all unknowingly died in their sleep. They had silently lost their lives. Even after death, the expression on their faces was still very peaceful, as if they were still sleeping soundly. But it was impossible for so many people to die in their sleep at the same time. It was impossible for so many martial saints to die in their sleep at the same time. There must be something fishy about this. The leaders of the three sects gathered again in the wee hours of the morning. This time, there is definitely something fishy about it. This time, it was clearly not the work of that goddamn executioner. This time, it was another kind of surprise attack. But no matter what, it can't be explained. Even the people who were close to him couldn't discover it. Why is this? What kind of strange method could cause such an effect? Among the doubts, the great elder of the ghost clan's face was gloomy. He didn't speak from the beginning. At the end of the discussion, he lowered his voice and said, "This time, I'm afraid we have encountered a real problem." "What do you mean?" The others were even more confused and asked. Although the previous mysterious killer's cultivation was extremely high, he may not be one of Chu Yang's men. As far as I know, among those people, there is no one who has such cultivation and swordsmanship. That's right. Among them, Bai Yuchen's cultivation is the highest, but she definitely can't reach such a level. As for Chu Yang, who killed Tai that day, he used some kind of method to exchange his life for tyrannical strength. He can't use it frequently, and he can't use it again. He is still a small shrimp in his bones, and he doesn't have such strength. So, I didn't connect the incident during the day to Chu Yang. Although there must be some kind of connection, it was definitely not them who did it. This is already certain. The great elder of the ghost clan said slowly, but the strange deaths of 118 people last night reminded me of one thing, a very important thing. What important thing? The others asked in unison. I remember General Meng Wuya once said that Chu Yang had a divine soul in his hand. And General Meng Wuya, because of the divine soul in the final battle, was seriously injured and couldn't fight anymore. So, this group of survivors fled 88,000 miles and finally escape. With this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. Yes, I see. Then everything makes sense. So, the one who did it last night must be the divine soul in tribulation. Only a divine soul in tribulation can have such a mysterious method. General Meng didn't complete the task that day. I see. I'm ignorant, I haven't heard of it. Humph, we are now the key people under surveillance. Who will tell us this? If I didn't have a friend in Wei Jun, I would never know this. The great elder of the ghost clan sighed. That's right. Since the other party is a divine soul in tribulation, how should we deal with it? Chapter 21:14. Generally speaking, the spirit of calamity is an existence that cannot be killed or destroyed. However, this does not mean that it is invincible. The great elder of the ghost clan said gloomily, otherwise, wouldn't this world become the world of the spirit of calamity? He turned his head to look at the great elder of the Iron Sword clan and said, I heard that General Meng used the destruction of wind and thunder to severely injure the spirit of calamity. The great elder of the Iron Sword clan was startled. To deal with the divine soul of the calamity, our ghost's domain alone is definitely not enough. The great elder of the ghost's domain sighed. Our ghost's domain's cultivation method focuses on the cold death chi. For the divine soul of the calamity, this thing is a great supplement. In other words, the divine soul of the calamity is the existence that restrains our sect the most. Therefore, if you want to deal with this spirit of calamity, I'm afraid you too will need to put in a lot of effort. He looked at the great elder of the Iron Sword clan and said indifferently, I heard that the Iron Sword clan has kept a treasure called the bright brilliant jade for generations. It is an item that can restrain the cold death energy of the world. This time, this old man does not believe that we will leave it in the treasury to collect dust at such a time of life and death. At this juncture, it is time for us to work together. If your clan has the ability to deal with it, I hope you will spare no effort to overcome this difficulty together. He narrowed his eyes and smiled, but the great elder of the Iron Sword clan's face had already turned bitter. He sighed deeply. In these 2 nights and 1 day, the 3 big sects in the lone bamboo city seemed to have entered hell. The shadow of death shrouded them at all times. Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning, who were also in the lone bamboo city, were playing in full swing at this moment. They were having so much fun that they did not miss anything. Yarrow Ningning resolutely refused to follow Elder Hu and Elder Ma. She was having so much fun with Tan Tan in the lone bamboo city. Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma had seen that Tan Tan's manner of speech and behavior were quite unconventional. However, it wasn't particularly mischievous. At the very least, Tan Tan wouldn't set foot in those filthy places. With this as the main premise, the 2 elders finally felt a little more at ease. They only used their divine sense to envelop the area. After confirming the direction, they no longer followed closely behind, not leaving a single step behind. In any case, Lone Bamboo City was only about the size of a woman's butt. Even if there was danger, with their cultivation, they should be able to hold out for a while. If they had that much time, the 2 elders would have rushed over. The Demon Empress had already given an order to give the Grand Elder a certain amount of training space. It was rare to meet someone like Tan Tan who was favored by the Grand Empress. Once he missed this opportunity, he was really afraid that there wouldn't be another chance like this again, at a certain casino. Did you see that? In such a situation, you should bet big. Tan Tan patiently guided him while casually grabbing a handful of purple cloud coins and slamming it on the gambling table. That makes sense. Yarrow Ningning rubbed his hands and nodded repeatedly, expressing his agreement and admiration. How is it? Are you excited? Tan Tan asked. Okay. Yarrow Ningning's face flushed red. She didn't understand. Brother Tan, you're right. Money is just a number to me. Even if the entire casino was given to me for free, I wouldn't necessarily care about it. Why would I be excited about such a small win or loss? I'm really excited, the kind that isn't fake at all. The Grand Elder pondered over it and was still puzzled. He didn't know that gambling was human nature. Even if one didn't want to gamble and didn't lack money, once there was an opportunity to reap without sowing, even if the final reward was very little, they would still feel excited. This had nothing to do with the value of wealth. It was just human nature. If one indulged, they would be gamblers and could be addicted for a long time. If one restrained themselves, they would be heroes and forge an immortal legend. Of course, Yarrow Ningning was still a different kind of super aristocrat. Or it could be said that his vision was too low and his expectations were too high. To put it bluntly, if Yarrow Ningning said that he wanted money, all the money in the Demon Emperor heaven could be said to be his. After all, he was the only one under the Demon Empress. It wasn't like other worlds where His Majesty the Celestial Emperor had so many children. If he didn't pass the throne to him, who would he pass it to? So this brother was just following Tan Tan. Looking for the feeling of Jianghu, that's all. Regarding Tan Tan's actions, Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma were speechless. What you said about repaying gratitude and enmity with a sword under the heavens, traveling alone with a sword across thousands of people. Is it going to the casino to gamble? And it's going to be so small? I really want to spit on your face. After placing his bet, the dice on the table clattered. When it was opened, it was indeed big. Wahahaha. Yarrow Ningning jumped 3 feet high and almost hit the roof beam. He was really excited to the extreme. He exclaimed happily, I won. I won. Ha ha ha. The group of people at the side all looked over with eyes full of disdain. This bastard, he had already lost hundreds of thousands of purple cloud coins, and now he had only won a few dozen purple cloud coins back, and he was already so happy, and even excited. He was already dancing with joy, this kind of prodigal. Luckily it wasn't my son. If I had given birth to him, I might as well have thrown him on the wall. I wouldn't be so dizzy now. If it was my son, he would have gone crazy from anger today. After that, it seemed that the gambling luck wasn't there. Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning lost big and special. The two of them were looking forward to it, sighing, and dejected at the same time. Do you see? This is Jianghu. This is experience. Tan Tan said, do you see? We basically haven't won yet, right? This is Jianghu experience. Yarrow Ningning nodded blankly. He suddenly felt dizzy. What does losing money have to do with Jianghu and experience? Looks like you really haven't run Jianghu. You're a flower in a greenhouse. Don't you think about it? Gambling isn't big or small. The probability of winning or losing is only half. Even if you lose, there's a limit. But we actually lost all the way. Can our luck be so bad? What do you think? Tan Tan's eyebrows were crooked. He was very exasperated. Yarrow Ningning didn't care about how much money he lost, but Tan Tan was really distressed. Because all the money he was using now was his money. Motherfucker, the money that he had worked so hard for and even robbed by force went into other people's pockets just like that. How could this be? Yarrow Ningning still hadn't reacted. Although he also felt that Tan Tan's words were very reasonable. How could the two brothers' luck be bad? Then there must be a problem. What was the problem? He subconsciously asked, Brother Tan, what do you think the problem is? Tan Tan rolled his eyes and said, the problem is very simple. This casino is cheating. They treat the two of us, especially you, as sheep. And I didn't point this out before because I wanted to use facts to remind you. Gambling money is no problem, but playing with cheaters and losing no matter how you play, that's boring. Well, it's like this. I understand. Then what should we do next? Leave. Yarrow Ningning nodded repeatedly. You're really a sheep. If we really leave, won't they succeed in cheating us? To deal with the current situation, the first thing to do is to break this bad luck. We have to do this. Tan Tan said mysteriously. Yarrow Ningning blinked and said in confusion, what do we do? However, Tan Tan kicked a mahjong table with a thunderous force. The mahjong table flew high up in the air, and fell apart with a crashing sound. Tan Tan roared loudly, and jumped to another table. Then, He swept his foot, and all the gambling tools and chips fell to the ground with a crashing sound. Then, he cursed loudly, "Motherfucker! This casino is cheating." Suddenly, thunder sounded all over the world. Everyone was stunned. Tan Tan raised his arms and shouted, "This casino is cheating. They treat my old brothers as sheep. They've already caused me to lose millions. I won't forgive you." Yarrow Ningning immediately understood. He kicked another table over with a clang and shouted excitedly, "Yes, the casino is cheating. Otherwise, how could we keep losing?" Many people showed sympathy, but not for the casino, but for the two idiots. It seemed that these two idiots had lost their heads and were anxious. They didn't think that this casino had a great background. Besides, gambling is gambling. What's so strange about losing? It would be strange if they kept winning. This guy was simply an idiot. And a super too. "Take these two brats down for me," a cold voice said. The casino's hired thugs swarmed forward. Their eyes were filled with cruelty. No one had come to cause trouble for a long time. Today, they could finally loosen their muscles and bones and have a good time. "Cheating, and you dare to hit people!" Tan Tan shouted and jumped off the table. Without another word, he immediately attacked. Yarrow Ningning was filled with righteous indignation. He felt that this casino's way of handling things was too wrong. "You're the owner of a casino. Isn't it just for us to win money? Now that you've cheated and caused us to lose money, you still want to hit people? This is simply too unreasonable. Is there still law?" He rushed in front of Tan Tan and said angrily, "It's fine if you cheat, but you still want to hit people. How can there be such logic in this world? I will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens today." With two slaps, the two men from before were the first to fly out. Then, like a tiger in a flock of sheep, he pointed to the east and hit the west, south and north. He was really a hero with a murderous aura. What kind of expert guards could a casino in a remote area and a small lone bamboo city have? Could it withstand the ravaging of a saint-level expert? And this master actually felt extremely wronged as he hit people. Spittle flew everywhere as he shouted, "We found out that you cheated, and you still dare to hit people. Can you still be reasonable? Is there still law? Do you really think that Demon Emperor Heaven is your territory?" Everyone who heard these words felt a chill run down their spines. "What the hell? Your sister, you two are the only ones here who are unreasonable and don't follow the law. You actually dare to complain first. We didn't even discover that the casino was cheating. How can you cheat just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Do you think your father is Xue Leihan and your mother is the Demon Empress?" Chapter 21:15. In an instant, the casino's thugs were lying on the ground. Some had broken arms, some had broken legs. The whole place was filled with grief. Although a certain great master's attack was not heavy, he was still a peak saint-level expert. How could these small fries be able to withstand his attack? It was already very fortunate that they did not lose their lives. "Hey, quickly call your boss out." Tan Tan sat down and slammed the table. "There must be an explanation for today's matter. The consequences of treating us brothers like sheep are very serious." Yarrow Ningning sat down angrily and slammed the table as well. "Yes, quickly call your boss out. The consequences are very serious." Everyone was no longer looking down on him. Instead, they were admiring him. "Look at how he's being ripped off. How righteous. If I could fight as well. Who would still want to bet with me?" The casino's boss was also discerning. He had already seen through these two idiots. Not only were they super sheep, but they were also super experts. Such guys were not to be trifled with. Besides, these were troubled times. They might really lose their lives. He hurriedly walked out, scared out of his wits. His expression was extremely ugly. "May I ask where the two of you heroes are from?" Tan Tan slammed the table and shouted, "You don't care who we are. But it's wrong for you to cheat and win our money." He did not use much strength, but a table suddenly sank into the ground. A big black hole appeared on the ground. It seemed bottomless. Yarrow Ningning followed suit and slammed the table. Yes. It's wrong to win our money. Spit it out how we ate it. No, it's obvious that you cheated. You have to spit out what we won. A table also sank to the ground without being touched. Tan Tan's eyebrows twitched. He thought that this guy really had the talent to be a robber. He was obviously twisting words and forcing logic, but he said it as a matter of course. We can't fall behind. Then, he slammed the other table and shouted, I also feel hurt. You were beating people just now. I was scared out of my wits. Yarrow Ningning also slammed the table. Yes, I was also hurt. You scared me just now. I was so scared that I had cramps. Everyone fainted. You beat people to death, but you were still scared out of your wits. You are really timid. So, you have to compensate us brothers for our losses. Our losses are too big. Tan Tan continued to clamor. That's right, compensate for the losses. Yarrow Ningning echoed loudly. You still have to heal our wounded hearts. My heart is still pounding. Tan Tan shouted like a thunderclap. Yes. Yarrow Ningning slammed the table and glared. Our wounded spirit. Tan Tan was seething with anger. Yes, spirit. Yarrow Ningning was infuriated. And you've wasted our time. Compensation. Tan Tan continued to roar. Yes, time. Our time is too precious. The Grand Elder continued to agree. There are many others. He also had to compensate. Anyway, it's a lot. Tan Tan roared. He felt that he had run out of words. In any case, we have to pay for everything. We just have to pay for it. Yarrow Ningning said arrogantly. Fuck, this feeling is just too good. No wonder there were so many people in this world who liked to be unreasonable. It turned out to be such a great feeling. Yarrow Ningning sighed inwardly. It's a pity that an honest descendant of the royal family, the dignified demon emperor Tian Tai, was led astray by Tan Tan. The gambling den's boss was about to cry. Damn, the opening was not successful. We just opened early in the morning, and these two plague gods came in. They were obviously here to extort. We opened a gambling den, and we actually won your money. Then, whose money should I win? We didn't cheat. Our gambling den's reputation is quite good. We really didn't cheat. Could it be that we can only lose money to our customers when we open a gambling den? What kind of logic is that? Then why do we still open a gambling den? But the current situation was that his fists were inferior, and the situation was stronger. He could only put on a smiling face and say good words. Why are you so unhappy? If you don't compensate, I'll kill you. Tan Tan threatened fiercely. It was really just a threat. If you don't compensate, I'll kill your entire clan. Yarrow Ningning shouted. It really wasn't a threat. It really came. After a while, the two bullies swaggered out of the gambling den. They happily walked while counting their money. How do you feel? Tan Tan was in high spirits. We're rich, we've earned money. Yarrow Ningning happily counted the money. We've lost less than 10,000 purple cloud coins before, but now we've earned so much purple cloud coins. This is really a good deal with small capital and huge profit. I said small. Tan Tan patted Yarrow Ningning's shoulder and said earnestly, this is the martial world. Strength is everything. The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. You've worked so hard to cultivate your good skills. Wouldn't it be a pity if you don't use them? Don't let your strength down. Elder Hu and Elder Ma, who had been monitoring with their divine senses, had the urge to vomit blood. Don't tell me that only by extorting and robbing will I not let down my good skills. Yarrow Ningning nodded repeatedly. He was convinced and deeply agreed. Yes, yes. Brother Tan, let's go find another gambling den. This time, I'll take the lead. You watch. I think I've understood it all. Yes, you can be taught. Let's go. The two bullies held their heads high and continued to roam the martial world. After a long time, the two of them returned with a full load. Their sleeves were filled with purple clouds. This still doesn't seem to be satisfying enough. Tan Tan said. Then let's do something more satisfying. I'll listen to you, Brother Tan. Yarrow Ningning was now in a state of great joy of reaping without sowing. He counted the money happily and said, "Damn it. After living for so long, this is the first time I've earned money with my own hands. It doesn't matter how much money is, but the feeling of earning money is really good. Comfortable." As soon as he said this, even Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who had been watching with their divine senses, fainted on the ground. Earning money. Is this money that you've earned? Even Tan Tan was a little speechless at this time. This idiot had a realm. After finishing his apprenticeship, he could already roam the martial world. If you want to roam the martial world, just having money is not enough. It's still far from enough. Tan Tan guided patiently. For cultivation, the most important thing is heavenly treasures and divine weapons. Heavenly treasures can help you improve your cultivation, and divine weapons can help you defeat your enemies. Where can I find these things? Yarrow Ningning's eyes lit up. This is not a problem of where. The City Lord's mansion has them. But this is Demon Emperor Heaven. Rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. We can't lay our hands on the locals, understand? Tan Tan guided earnestly. Understood, I understand all of it. But we can't lay our hands on our own people. Yarrow Ningning's eyes lit up even more. He thought to himself, outsiders don't matter, right? Actually, what did he understand? He only understood that Tan Tan said that they couldn't lay their hands on the people of Demon Emperor Heaven. Laying their hands on their own people and robbing them seemed to be really unreasonable. A certain lady still had a bit of conscience. Tan Tan smiled slyly. So we have to target the outsiders. Why did I hear that? There are many people from Demon Emperor Heaven in this city. They are. Yarrow Ningning was excited. You mean? Tan Tan laughed. That depends on whether you have the guts or not. If you're a coward. Yarrow Ningning flew into a rage. I'm not a coward. You're not. Tan Tan looked doubtful. No. You're really not. I'm really not. This can be, because this matter is more or less risky. Absolutely not. What's the big deal about risks? Why would I be afraid of taking risks in the martial world? I'm full of guts. That's good. Let's go and rob them. Do you really dare? Why wouldn't I dare? Would Demon Emperor Heaven and his gang dare to offend me? Let's go rob them. Yarrow Ningning said heroically. Let's go. Let's go. In a distant place, Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma sighed. They were angry that he didn't fight and sad that he wasn't wise. They wanted to step forward and stop him, but the Demon Empress had already given the order to let him suffer a little to gain experience. But, if they let him continue to gain experience like this, it would really be a little risky, the two of them sighed. When they just came out, they thought that they had picked up an easy job. Now, it seemed that this old life was going to be tormented to death. Even if they weren't scared to death, they would be angered to death, or they would be disgusted to death. However, in the end, this matter was more or less unreasonable. To these two old men, robbing something from Demon Emperor Heaven and the other two big sects wasn't a big deal. It really wasn't a big deal. This was the Demon Emperor Heaven. Demon Emperor Heaven's people. What were they? The Great Master robbing them was giving them face. Although Tan Tan was a little unreasonable, his words were still very reasonable. The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. Their fist was big enough, so the reason was naturally on their side. At this moment, the people from the three big sects had already gone crazy. They were running around the streets in panic. Everyone seemed to be suspicious. Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning easily saw the two of them. The two of them, especially Yarrow Ningning, couldn't wait to rush out. Stop right there. Yarrow Ningning shouted. That person was from the demon ghost. He turned back with a face full of anger. Little bastard, are you calling me? The word little bastard instantly made Yarrow Ningning forget that his job was robbery. He went forward and slapped him, unable to restrain his anger. You bastard, you old bastard. You actually dare to scold me. I'll beat you to death. A series of slaps rang out. It was a pity that this person only had the cultivation of the early stage saint level. How could he compare to Yarrow Ningning, who was already half a step into the celestial being level? He was suppressed to the point that he couldn't move. He could only hold his face and be slapped back and forth. In just a short while, he was beaten until blood flowed out, turning into a human head and pig brain. Robbery. Tan Tan hurriedly reminded. We're robbing, not beating people. Don't put the cart before the horse. Chapter 21:16. That man wanted to cry but had no tears. Yarrow Ningning took the ring off his hand. He looked at it and said with disdain, "What kind of trash is this? You have the nerve to wear it." He casually broke the scabbard and the sword into 3 pieces. Then, he took the storage ring off his hand. He didn't even look at it. He put it in his pocket. Then, he kicked it and scolded, "Pauper, get lost. Next time, remember to bring more valuable things when you go out. You don't have any eyesight." That man was kicked like a ball. He flew to an unknown place with a whoosh sound. "Quickly open that ring and see what good things are inside," Tan Tan urged. Yarrow Ningning opened it and looked. His eyes lit up. "There's a lot of money. We've made money again. What else? There are also some medicines. But, they are all ordinary goods. They can barely be used. There are also some low-grade spirit beast cores. They are too low-grade. They are too trashy." Yarrow Ningning naturally didn't care about these things with his status. "There's no big harvest. Forget it. I only want those spirit beast cores. The rest are all yours," Tan Tan said generously. What he lacked the most now was spirit beast cores. The other things were really meaningless. "Then wouldn't I be taking too much advantage?" Yarrow Ningning was a little hesitant. "Oh, why are you talking like this? We are brothers. Why are you still fussing about this? You're taking advantage. I'm suffering losses. Is there any meaning in our friendship?" Tan Tan took the ring and took out 70 or 80 spirit beast cores. Then, he threw them back. "Why are you treating me like an outsider?" Yarrow Ningning was extremely moved. "Big brother, you're so nice. I will follow you." "Nonsense. If I don't treat you well, who would I treat well?" Tan Tan had already swallowed 3 cores into his stomach while he was speaking. He had been hurrying on the road during this time. So, he had already digested the cores he had brought along. Now, he had a source of replenishment. These spirit beast cores would have to be refined by an ordinary person. Then, they would have to be combined with the corresponding medicines to have a certain effect. However, Tan Tan had directly and thoroughly absorbed all of it. This was the most useful and effective thing for Tan Tan. After that, the two of them used the same method to rob more than 10 people in succession. The bountiful harvest made Yarrow Ningning beam with delight. She would never have dreamed that robbing would be such a blissful thing. Yarrow Ningning was extremely satisfied as she looked at the increasing number of spatial rings she had obtained. The money had actually piled up into a small mountain. The value of these things might not be much, at least not in the eyes of a certain Taigu. However, this sense of accomplishment was irresistible. However, he definitely couldn't just let himself be satisfied and be done with it. Trouble would soon follow. They only robbed people from the 3 great sects and didn't rob anyone else. Moreover, they didn't even bother to hide their actions. It would be strange if such actions didn't attract attention. When the people from the 3 sects heard this news, they didn't believe it at first. Who was so awesome and bold? How dare they rob Lone Bamboo City so brazenly? This was impossible. Was there a mistake somewhere? However, as more and more people who were robbed came back crying and complaining, each and every one of them was about to go crazy. Motherfucker, ever since they came here, everything had gone wrong. First, they were robbed. Then, they were killed by the spirit of the calamity. Now, they actually encountered robbers. This was simply bad luck, one after another. Motherfucker, are the 3 great sects of Ink Cloud Sky Soft Persimmons? Does anyone have to pinch us when they see us? This matter couldn't be tolerated no matter what. Besides, it seems that this reason is on our side, right? Dozens of experts rushed over from all directions as soon as the order was given. They surrounded Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning, the 2 idiots. In fact, not even a drop of water could trickle through. "You 2 bastards, you actually dare to rob in broad daylight. You're really audacious. Moreover, you're robbing people from the 3 great sects of Ink Cloud Sky. You're really reckless. A middle-aged man shouted. Why don't you surrender? What are you waiting for? What do we do now? Yarrow Ningning was a little nervous. They're here. Although a certain old man participated in the robbery, in the end, it was all for fun. At the very least, he still had some sense of right and wrong and reverence for the law. Tan Tan said casually, what's there to be afraid of? Let's just kill them. Don't tell me that we're 2 handsome men, and strong men, need to be afraid of them. How can we not fight and not see blood when we roam the martial world? Yarrow Ningning said, that's right. Suddenly, she felt complacent in her heart. I'm also a handsome man, handsome and strong man. Then, she looked at Tan Tan and thought, just me. Suddenly, a heroic spirit rose in her heart. She strode out and shouted, who are you people? In a peaceful world, in a clear and bright world, in a public place, you actually dare to gather people to block the road and hold swords and sabers. Do you want to commit murder? Do you know the word law? The person who spoke didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A robber actually asked the people who came to catch the robber whether they knew the law. You really have no shame. The 2 of you are robbing in a peaceful world, in a clear and bright world, in broad daylight. Are you not afraid of being punished by the law? That person didn't want to be caught and asked first. Ha ha ha. Yarrow Ningning looked up to the sky and laughed, releasing the aura of the Demon Emperor Heaven. She shouted, in this Demon Emperor Heaven, I am the law. These words were really overbearing and arrogant to the extreme. How could the other party know that to others, these words were nonsense? But to Yarrow Ningning, these words were the truth. His mother was the Demon Empress. In the Demon Emperor Heaven, he was the law. These words were really true. But they didn't know. Instantly, they were filled with anger. A robber actually dared to say such words. Clearly, he didn't take them seriously. Go. Take them down. I want to see what the law looks like. 40 to 50 people shouted at the same time and rushed forward. The cold murderous intent in Tan Tan's eyes suddenly exploded. He shouted, yes, you dare to hurt my brother. He took the lead and rushed forward, blocking Yarrow Ningning behind him. He shouted, life and death brothers, together in life and death. A sword suddenly shot out, sword light flashing. Only a series of cracking sounds could be heard. The 5 swords opposite Tan Tan were cut in half by his sword at the same time. Then, bloodlight burst out. This sword of Tan Tan's was a top-grade divine weapon that Chu Yang spent all his effort to forge. Although it couldn't be compared to the Calamity Sword, it wasn't something that ordinary weapons could compare to. In this battle, no matter what the cultivation was, in a battle of weapons, there was no doubt that it would be easy to destroy. The opponent's sword was cut in half at the first moment. Everyone was stunned, and Tan Tan used this opportunity to kill. The sword light shone like autumn water. Under his sword, 3 people died and 2 were crippled in the blink of an eye. He injured a few. Then, Tan Tan was surrounded by the sea of people. Among these people, there were some who were weaker than Tan Tan, but not by much. Not to mention, there were many who were stronger than him. Tan Tan's situation suddenly became precarious. Big brother, I'll help you. Yarrow Ningning flew over. His blood was boiling. Life and death brothers, together in life and death. This was a friend. This was a brother. This was Jianghu. I came to roam Jianghu. Yarrow Ningning's attack was truly like the fart of a deity. It was extraordinary. He raised his hand, and a golden light flashed. Countless hair-like needles shot out. The opponent showed a look of disdain. Such light-flying needles could be blown away by a strong wind. You're actually using them to fight the enemy? You're really a newbie. With a wave of his sleeve, he wanted to sweep away these needles that were thinner than hair. But these golden needles weren't affected by his energy at all. When he attacked, these golden needles followed his energy and drilled in. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, 7 or 8 people were stabbed like this. In the next moment, screams sounded. Even if these men had their heads chopped off, they might not have screamed. But at this moment, they were screaming. After the golden needles pierced the skin, they followed the blood vessels and drilled into the heart in an instant. Soul-destroying heart-severing needle? The leader was shocked. He retreated quickly. Looking at the golden needles that seemed to have no target, he shuddered. This inconspicuous gigolo actually has such a treasure. Soul-destroying heart-severing needle was a legend in Demon Emperor Heaven. It was also a legend in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. This kind of needle wasn't afraid of being blocked by any energy. On the contrary, the more resistance you released, the faster you'd die. Moreover, once the skin was pierced, it would instantly penetrate the heart. It was almost impossible to save them. Legend had it that this item came from the hands of a demon. This demon relied on this weapon to roam the world for many years. In the end, it was said that a high-level expert of the demon race had to personally take action to kill him. However, the name of this soul-destroying heart-severing needle also shook the martial world from then on. How could such a domineering thing suddenly appear on this robber? What was going on? Not to mention anything else, just the value of that soul-destroying heart-severing needle, or even the cost of the production, was more than 3 times of all the things that were robbed. Wasn't this too disregarding the cost? Using this thing to deal with us is really thinking too highly of us. You're quite knowledgeable, old man. Yarrow Ningning laughed coldly. With a grab of her hand, the soul-destroying heart-severing needle was sucked into her palm. With a wave of her hand, a jet-black whip flew out from her hand. It was about 40 to 50 feet long. With a cracking sound, the 2 saint-level experts rolled on the ground. Their bodies were badly mutilated, and the whip marks were clearly visible, deep to the bone. Soul-locking whip. It's actually the soul-locking whip. The leader's eyes narrowed again. Another legendary treasure, and a super treasure that couldn't be resisted by one's cultivation base. This was something even more domineering than the soul-destroying heart-severing needle, and it wasn't even a consumable item. Where did this little boy get so many treasures from? With such wealth, was there a need to rob him? Chapter 21:17. Everyone, let's kill him. In the blink of an eye, so many people had died. The eyes of the leading Ghost Realm expert were red. The other party had such a precious treasure, yet he still wanted to rob them. He even specifically robbed the people of the 3 major sects. His intention to target them was too obvious. It was already difficult for both sides to end peacefully. Since that was the case, they naturally had to kill the other party as soon as possible. Countless people rushed forward bravely, but they saw that the whip was dancing in the air. It was extremely strange. They used their hands, feet, and spiritual power to block it, but it was all useless. Using swords and sabers, it immediately eliminated the power on the swords and sabers, and then swept the swords away. People still couldn't avoid being injured. Soul-locking whip. This was the soul-locking whip. Legend had it that it was made with the soul tendons of a dragon king. It was indestructible, and there was nothing it couldn't overcome. The moment it attacked, it brought the power of a dragon. It couldn't be destroyed, and it couldn't be restrained. Attack the person together. The Ghost Realm expert almost vomited blood. Don't attack that whip. Everyone obeyed and attacked again. Unexpectedly, Yarrow Ningning's body suddenly released a ball of strange light. Countless small hidden weapons suddenly flew out from her body. Although the hidden weapons were small, they were not as thin as the soul-breaking heart-piercing needles from before. Sky-heart iron. Heavens! The Ghost Realm expert screamed in despair. Sky-heart iron, the sky-heart iron that specialized in breaking all kinds of elemental power defenses in the world. As long as it was someone below the sage level, they would definitely not be able to resist the attack of the sky-heart iron. It would ignore any protective divine power and directly penetrate the body. Of course, it could be dodged, but as long as it was close, there was no way to escape. This was the legendary sky-heart iron. The size of a grain of rice was priceless, but thousands of them flew out from this small body in front of them. This was simply more extravagant and wasteful than using money to kill people. This was no longer using money to kill people. It was using Purple Cloud Mountain to kill people. There were a total of 30 or so people attacking at the same time from all directions. They concentrated their attacks, hoping to take down Yarrow Ningning in the shortest amount of time. This was the moment when the human heads were densely packed together. This time, no one was lucky enough to escape. They were all hit. The Heaven's Heart Iron gently pierced a hole in their bodies. Then, it fluttered lightly and returned to Yarrow Ningning's body. However, everyone stiffened at the same time. Then, they fell to the ground with a plop. Not a single one of them was left alive. Heaven's Heart Iron. At the moment of contact with blood, all the meridians, flesh, and bones in a person's body would be completely frozen. Instant death, incurable. This was precisely the tyrannical and terrifying aspect of the legendary hidden weapon Heaven's Heart Iron. Of all the experts who had besieged him, only the leader remained uninjured. Those who were injured were all dead. He would die if he brushed against it, and he would die if he touched it. For a moment, the only thought in this ghost hunter expert's mind was that he wanted to cry. "You motherfucker! You motherfucker!" This ghost hunter expert was extremely indignant. "You motherfucker are too much of a bully. You have so many treasures yourself. You don't even need one. Even if you take out a small fragment of any one of them, it would be more valuable than all of our assets. Moreover, it's the kind that has a price but no supply. Why do you have to rob us? You're too much of a bully." This question was simply so depressing that he couldn't figure it out even if he died. Although he was already destined to die, he still wanted to die with a clear understanding. If he couldn't figure out this question, he wouldn't be able to die in peace. No matter if it was the soul-breaking heart needle, the soul-locking whip, or the Heaven's Heart Iron, any one of these three items was really infamous in the Heaven Imperial Court. They were all legendary super-killing weapons. None of them needed a needle or a grain of iron. Even if it was just a little bit of powder, if it could be scraped off, then the value of the powder would really be more than all of these people's assets added together. In fact, it would be much more valuable. However, such a super-rich person, who ordinary people couldn't even afford, actually came to rob them. This was like an ordinary worker on Earth suddenly finding out that he was robbed when he got off work. And the person who robbed him was actually Bill Gates, who piloted an aircraft carrier. In fact, not only him, even Tan Tan seemed to be shocked. Just looking at these three treasures, Tan Tan's eyes were full of stars. What the hell? What is the background of this new little brother of mine? Not only is his cultivation higher than me, his big brother, but the treasures on him are even more earth-shattering. Yarrow Ningning frowned and asked somewhat puzzledly, "My wealth is my own business. What does it have to do with me wanting to rob you?" This sentence was really a stroke of genius. Hearing this, that ghost hunter expert was choked on the spot and couldn't say anything. That's right. His wealth is his own business. What does it have to do with him liking to rob? Even if Bill Gates really piloted planes, cannons, and submarines to rob an ordinary worker, what's the problem? As long as the other party is willing, there's no problem. It's just that this is really unreasonable. He saw Yarrow Ningning hurriedly collecting the rings on the ground. He opened them one by one and then began to divide the loot. "The bigger ones are yours. 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 The rest are all mine." Tan Tan accepted it mechanically. He felt that his brain had short-circuited and hadn't recovered yet. Then, he found that he had received more than 1,000 spirit beast cores in this short period of time. Tan Tan was somewhat speechless. Yarrow Ningning raised his head and was surprised to find that ghost hunter expert still standing there. He couldn't help but be puzzled. "Why haven't you left yet?" This expert of the ghost hunter clan was stunned. 50 people came, and he was the only one left. What hope did he have to survive? He was only waiting for the other party's sword to come, and he would be free. In the end, he waited for a long time and got this sentence: "Why haven't you left yet? Are you tired of living? You want me to help you? I can't be bothered to do it. There's no benefit to be gained." Yarrow Ningning tilted his head. The more he looked, the more he felt that this guy had a screw loose in his head. He said to Tan Tan, "Big brother, look. Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? Didn't they say that a bad life is better than a good death? Yarrow Ningning's learning ability was very fast. When Chu Yang, Tan Tan, and the others called someone together, they would usually call him this guy. Yarrow Ningning learned it immediately, and used it immediately. You're the one with a screw loose in your head. You have the nerve to say that someone else has a screw loose in his head. Tan Tan scolded in his heart, but his face deliberately showed a silly look. Yes. Is there something wrong with his brain? He can obviously live, but he wants to die. How can a normal person think like this? The two of them put on a handsome posture, and looked at this ghost hunter expert with surprise. This ghost hunter expert's face turned green, then red, then green. Finally, he let out a miserable howl, covered his face, and ran away madly. He really lost his last bit of self-esteem. He could run for his life, but he was actually chased away by others. Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning looked at each other happily, and laughed loudly. They were extremely happy. The two of them walked around, and stuck their heads out to look at the surrounding scenery. One of them was silly, and the other was curious. They didn't feel that they had just killed so many people, and didn't think that others would come for revenge. Yarrow Ningning didn't care. In his view, these guys weren't from Demon Emperor Heaven. Killing them was nothing. Old Master, who would dare to find trouble with me in Demon Emperor Heaven? It's fine if they don't come, but if they dare to come, let me have my fill. As for Tan Tan, he was more or less puffing himself up at his own cost. Irish itchy and provoked so many enemies. I have to do my best to share some of the pressure for him. As for his own life, he didn't care at all. As for Yarrow Ningning, Tan Tan wasn't worried at all. If there really was a life-threatening situation, either of Yarrow Ningning's two uncles would help, and he would be fine. As for his own life and death, whether they would save him or not, Tan Tan didn't care. Saving him was a favor. Not saving him was their duty. There was nothing to complain about. Just as the two of them were strolling around, the elites of the three big sects were all mobilized, and they were rushing towards them. Murderous intent surged, and anger soared to the sky. Being killed by an assassin was fine. Both sides were enemies. Being killed by the divine soul of the calamity was fine. Who asked the other party to be so strong that they couldn't go against him? Being ambushed was fine. Being massacred repeatedly was fine. Being unable to do anything. But now, they were actually robbed. The other party was just a small fry with two saint positions. Could it be that any random cat or dog could bully the three big sects of Dark Cloud Heaven now? Everyone's hearts were about to explode at this moment. At the same time, Chu Yang still had a sickly look on his face. He walked out sickly, and his body seemed to be so weak that it was swaying with every step. Using a method that almost annoyed himself, he got rid of all possible attention and came to the street. Then, Chu Yang felt that something was wrong. Something was very, very, very wrong. Why is the murderous aura on this street today so heavy? It seems that I didn't make a move today. Why did it arouse so much resentment? But he saw that there were two guys coming from afar, talking and laughing. Both of them had their heads held high, their chests puffed out, and their waists straightened. Their faces and bodies were asking for a beating. Chu Yang shuddered fiercely, and his eyes were wide open. Fuck. Oh my God. This bastard, why would he appear at this place at this time? Chu Yang's heart was warm and anxious. There was also an indescribable feeling. Since coming up to the heavenly imperial court, this was the first time that he saw his own brother again, a long-awaited reunion. Tan Tan. This bastard junior brother. The murderous aura from all directions converged at an extremely fast speed. The momentum was so great that even Chu Yang was a little surprised. These people shouldn't be coming for him. But, if they really weren't coming for him, could it be that they were coming for Tan Tan? Chapter 21:19. Chu Yang took a deep breath, and suppressed his thumping heart. Then, he quietly hid his body. He had just hidden himself when countless people swept past him from all directions. And, they crazily rushed towards Tan Tan and his companion. Their killing intent was awe-inspiring. Those people are from the three big sects. Chu Yang instantly recognized them. But he couldn't believe what he was seeing. That was because those guys seemed to be in a bad situation where they would collapse at any time. It seems that they are too angry. Their eyes were red, and their pupils were bloodshot. Some of them were bristling with anger. It was as if they wanted to eat someone. What did Tan Tan do to them? How did he make these people become like this? Chu Yang was somewhat flabbergasted. That was because the situation was too strange. At least, this situation was indeed strange in Chu Yang's eyes. I killed so many of their people before. But they didn't seem to have collapsed to this extent, right? How can Tan Tan do this? Tan Tan's innate talent is extraordinary. And his cultivation progress is only slightly below mine. But this is already the limit. I had many fortuitous encounters since I came to the layered heavens. My speed of advancement had already reached an unimaginable level for ordinary people. I was invincible under the sage realm. To be honest, at least half of this achievement came from external forces. Then, there was the layered heavens divine technique, and so on. So, Tan Tan couldn't catch up with me in any way. She had already confirmed that Tan Tan's present cultivation was at the level of sage level. This was already very rare and commendable. However, he could at most deal with experts of the same level. In fact, he might even be able to deal with experts of a higher level. In other words, Tan Tan wouldn't be a match for an expert of the heavenly level. As for his companion, he was much stronger than Tan Tan. He had already reached the peak of the sage realm. But he was only SOSO. So, his strength was useless in the face of a celestial realm expert. After all, not everyone was as awesome as me, who had cultivated the layered heavens divine technique. However, the current situation was that these two people had angered a large group of people in front of them. Moreover, they had angered them to the point that they could collapse at any time. What's going on? Of course, Chu Yang was surprised. But he didn't have time to investigate. That was because the current situation had reached a very bad state. He furrowed his brows tightly as he tried to think of a solution. However, no matter how hard he thought, he could not think of any way to resolve the current crisis. The current situation was that Tan Tan and the other guy had been surrounded by these people. Those people from the three major sects were obviously here to settle accounts with them, and there was no lack of experts. Just the number of experts at the celestial being realm was not small. The situation could be said to be precarious. The cultivation of Tan Tan and that guy combined isn't as high as mine. This is obvious. If he were to face them head-on, even if he were to personally make a move, he would only be dead if he were to encounter such a situation. Despite Chu Yang's awe-inspiring prowess earlier, most of his previous victories were built on the advantages of surprise attacks and sneak attacks. In addition, the Calamity Sword and Calamity Sword technique were too sharp, and there was also the great motive force of the heaven-conquering divine technique. If Chu Yang's true strength was to be compared to a saint, no one below the level of a saint could be his opponent. However, in a head-on confrontation, and one against many, he was still doomed. Then what should he do? Chu Yang's heart was burning with anxiety. The only thing he was sure of was that even if he were to go out, he couldn't let them think that he was with Tan Tan. Otherwise, Tan Tan would really be implicated by him. However, how should he solve this crisis in front of him? Chu Yang took a deep breath, and his eyes turned resolute. No matter what kind of crisis or obstacle there was, he couldn't care less now. Chu Yang didn't know Yarrow Ningning's identity, and he didn't know what Yarrow Ningning and the others were relying on. He only knew that his brother was in danger and could be killed at any time. Moreover, it was very normal for Tan Tan to do such a thing in a situation where he didn't have any assurance of success, given his usual disposition. As for the guy next to him, his cultivation was obviously higher than Tan Tan's, but he still worshipped Tan Tan. One could imagine how high his IQ was. He couldn't count on him. How could you expect such a person to have any plans or powerful trump cards? Minister Chu shook his head subconsciously. Sigh, that would be too much. So Minister Chu was ready to risk his life. At this moment, he heard a sudden roar from the other side. What the hell are you doing? All of you, go and surround them. A bunch of trash. Even the earth seemed to tremble because of this voice. Chu Yang wasn't unfamiliar with this voice. It belonged to the extremely strong Great Elder of the Ghost Clan. Take him down. The Great Elder of the Ghost Clan didn't even ask. He was about to go crazy because of all the things in front of him. What was the point of asking? Now that someone was riding on his head and shitting on him, he would be a real fool if he still wanted to come up and ask for advice. Wait. Two people shouted at the same time. The experts of the three big sects who were about to press forward were all startled. It was Tan Tan and Yarrow Ningning who had spoken. Demon King Tan raised his nose and said to the Great Elder of the Ghost Clan, "Old man, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? You dare to offend me. Aren't you afraid that your whole clan will be exterminated?" Tan Tan wasn't completely without schemes. This old man who had just arrived was so powerful that it was beyond the limit of what he could deal with. So, he might as well attack his mind. Attacking his mind was one thing, but he didn't want to lose his prestige and status. So, he said this sentence, which was a very standard idea of Tan Tan. His domineering and arrogant words made the Great Elder of the Ghost Tribe, who was already stamping with rage, even more furious. His lips trembled. At this moment, he really wanted to swallow this ugly guy alive. Who are you? Who else can you be? Even if you have a little bit of status, you can't rob people on the road, right? The Great Elder was about to speak when he saw Yarrow Ningning imitate Tan Tan and say to the Great Elder of the Ghost Clan, "Presumptuous old man who just arrived, do you know who I am? You dare to offend me. Aren't you afraid that your whole clan will be exterminated?" The Great Elder of the Ghost Clan went crazy. What kind of people were they? Why were they pretending to be big shots? Weren't they just robbers? Exterminating the entire family, not sparing even chickens and dogs. His entire family was executed and his entire clan was exterminated. Do you think you are Xue Leihan? Or do you think you are Yuan Tianjie? Not the Demon Empress anymore? Take him down. Take him down. The Great Elder of the Ghost Clan roared, "No need to take him down. Everyone, go all out and chop him up. Throw him out to feed the dogs." His face had already turned purple from anger. How many years had it been since he got so angry? This time, he really couldn't bear it. Clang, clang, clang. Sabers and swords were unsheathed. At this moment, Chu Yang, who was in the shadows, finally made up his mind and suddenly rushed out. "My brother is in danger. I must get him out of this predicament. But the enemies are gathered and there are many experts. I am definitely no match for them, but my brother is in trouble. No matter what, I will do my best." In this specific situation where he bounced back from a hopeless situation, Chu Yang's fighting spirit was suddenly suppressed to the extreme. He struck with his sword, completely selfless. He was only relying on instinct to strike. There was only one thought in his mind, subconsciously. He chose the move with the greatest power among all his moves. But it was in such a hopeless situation that he inexplicably stimulated his own unlimited potential. All the origin energy in his dantian was completely emptied in an instant. There wasn't a single drop left. In an instant, the whole sky and earth were suddenly filled with a biting cold murderous intent. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? Chu Yang was extremely anxious and worried. But, he had actually successfully used his most powerful move. So far, the ultimate move of the Tribulation Sword technique. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? While the sword move was still in preparation, the energy of the whole world was suddenly emptied due to some situation. Everyone within a radius of 10,000 feet felt as if they couldn't breathe at the same time. An unprecedented silent oppression suddenly enveloped this place. Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who were about to move, suddenly pause. A trace of inexplicable fear flashed in their eyes as they looked in a certain direction. As people who were at the peak of the elementary level of saint, they knew the origin of this aura better than anyone else. How could such an aura be produced? That was the ultimate slaughter. Inhumane, unscrupulous slaughter. Moreover, This kind of ultimate slaughter could only appear when an expert at the level of a saint unleashed an all-out attack without holding back. Who was it? Who exactly was it? Which saint had actually gone mad at such a time? In an instant, a majestic sword light filled with madness and destruction suddenly lit up behind the people of the Three Big Sect. At this moment, even the scorching sun in the sky seemed to have lost its brilliance. Although it was broad daylight, everyone could feel that under the illumination of that brilliant sword light, the originally clear sky and bright sun were actually dim and no different from the night sky. The sword light cut through the sky at an extremely fast speed. Its speed was dozens of times faster than flowing light, but it also gave people a feeling that it was incomparably slow. This kind of completely opposite feeling made everyone who felt this artistic conception almost go crazy. At the same time, a mosquito-like voice suddenly transmitted to Tantan's ears, "You bastard. Hurry up and leave." A sword light flew up like an angry dragon. It galloped wildly like a golden dragon. In an instant, it turned into a river of stars and majestically entered the crowd. The great elder of the ghost hunter was standing in the front. He suddenly turned around. His cultivation base was the highest among the people here, so only he knew what was going on. Instantly, he was scared out of his wits. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "Run!" But the majestic sword light had already rushed into the dense crowd and exploded with a loud bang. It was as if all the crystals in the world were gathered here and shattered at this moment. That gorgeous and resplendent light, that space was shattered into countless fold. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.